Eagles. Eagles.
And welcome in, everybody, to a Thursday edition of Birds 365 here on JAKIB Sports. I'm your host, Zander Krause. That's my co-host, John McMullen, coming to you live after a big night in Eagle Land, not necessarily a good night in Eagle Land. The Stoutland fallout, we'll call. Jeff Stoutland has officially walked away from the Philadelphia Eagles, and our show will be largely about that today and what it means for this Philadelphia Eagles team. We'll talk to John Stoleness in hour number 2. Johnny Mac, how you doing on this Thursday morning, my friend?
Doing well. Yeah, not the news you wanted to hear if you're an Eagles fan, certainly, I would think, but who knows? I mean, they seem what it does tell you from a positive standpoint is they seem, at least for most people, they seem really hell-bent on changing this offense. So a lot of people want that.
I know.
So, I mean, but I see, just from the comments I've seen, it's the same people who want to change the offense that are criticizing them from going in a different direction with the running game. So you gotta have that moment where you're honest with yourself and ask yourself, what do you want? What do you really want? And the Eagles are really hell-bent on changing this offense, and we're going to see what it looks like. But in the moment, it doesn't look good not walking away because it was Jeff's decision, but obviously Jeff made the decision because he wasn't necessarily happy with the situation. So one of the best assistant coaches in the NFL by just about consensus, one of the best offensive line coaches of all time. And this plays, I always talk about at least personnel over coaching. This is more of scheme over personnel and coaching, I would say. And I think that's a slippery slope to go down.
No doubt about it, Johnny Mac. It is a slippery slope to go down here for the Philadelphia Eagles. Jeff Stoutland, 13 years, all right, in Philadelphia, John. A lot of success for the great Jeff Stoutland here. 2 Super Bowls, the best O-line coach in football, as you just alluded to, and he has now officially walked out the door. John, a lot of things came out surrounding the Jeff Stoutland news last night. We'll talk about all of them. The first being Jeff Stoutland's farewell post on X, thanks to the city of Philadelphia, said he became one of us. All right, so a pretty cool post from Jeff Stoutland. Millions of views on that. I think over 7.5 million views. So Stoutland, obviously a highly regarded guy. And then, John, the Tim McManus report came out, or the Tim McManus article about it, which basically alluded to Nick and Patullo making changes in the run game without ever consulting Jeff Stoutland. This comes on the heels of what Jeff McClain reported a couple weeks ago, which you have shed light more on that point. We'll talk a little bit about it. And now Jeff Stoutland is out the door. John, what's your initial reaction to not only the loss of Jeff Stoutland, which we will talk about extensively today, but that report that Tim McManus had about, how he felt like, I don't want to use the word disrespect because that's not the word that Tim McManus used, but they didn't consult Jeff Stoutland. It rubbed him the wrong way, felt that his voice in the run game or his title was no longer accurate. And then here we are now a couple weeks later, or I guess I should say a couple months later, Jeff Stoutland's out the door. Your first thought, John, on that whole process, whole saga?
Yeah, I mean, I was, Tim's report, I don't want to use the word disrespected either, but that's what I had heard. Basically, that was closer. That's why I kind of couched that they took it away from. I think I had heard it was more, and that's why if people remember the cheer story, that's why I brought up the cheer story. Like I think there's dangers with these titles, and run game coordinator, pass game coordinator. Now you have defensive run game coordinators, defensive pass game coordinators. You give them titles, and look, it creates expectations when in most situations, depending on the setup, whether you have an offensive head coach or an offensive coordinator calling plays, like they're in charge. They're in charge. Like, and I think there's this conflated thought process around the league that, well, he's involved with this and he's involved with that. And it's not really. It's the same as it always has been. Yeah, you're responsible for drawing up some of the concepts and things like that get folded into the game plan. That's always been the responsibility. It could be the running. In some cities, it might be the running backs coach. Most cities, it's the offensive line coach. But the head coach and or the offensive coordinator have the ultimate. They got the pencil, so to speak. They have the ultimate say, and that's how it has to be, and that's how it should be, and that's how it always will be, and that's how it continues to be. But I think from the standpoint of Jeff, yeah, it was more of, well, if you're going to ignore my thoughts, I don't even want the title. That's why I kind of didn't want to go down the route of it. It was taken away from him. So my question is a larger question, like, why did you decide to go in there? And that's the thing. Like all these people that wanted different, they tried it last year. They went under center. Everybody was so happy when they went under center. And it was okay at times. And then it started to flatline because they're not used to it. And maybe they get better at it if they do it a lot more. Whatever. It's possible. But, I mean, they've tried this stuff. And from the I don't understand it from the strategy perspective of the Philadelphia Eagles. Like you know what you have. He's 13 years in the building. He's a year off the sixth best rushing offense in the entire history of the game. And you get a little pushback and you say, fuck it. And by the way, Landon, nobody knows more than them how banged up Landon Dickerson was, how banged up Cam Jurgens was, that they didn't have Lane Johnson for 8 games.
And they still won 11, by the way.
And they won 11 games, and you're pushing the panic button? That's my issue.
All right, where is it, John? Well, because you look at the social sentiment, and the social sentiment's not always right, but just to add to the context, Serriani's the villain, and he's been the villain for a long time. But even our buddy BLG, who was on the show yesterday, Brandon Lee Gowan, Nick Serriani disrespected Jeff Stoutland. He wrote, not really what you want to see from the good culture CEO head coach. A couple other social comments I pulled this morning. If Nick Sirianni is in any way responsible for Stoutland leaving this team, get Nick out of the building yesterday. Nick Sirianni and his buddy really drove Jeff Stoutland out of town. The overwhelming sentiment is that people, have Nick in the crosshairs. I do think there's an alternative perspective, and I will ask everybody to consider it, whether it's true or not. Everybody begged, every time they felt like Sirianni made any calls on the offense, they hated it, right? Nick, get out of the offense. Nick, stop.
And they don't even know if he's in the offense or not.
Well, and my whole thing here is if Nick was really still in complete and 100% control and didn't placate to whatever the narrative is on the outside or coming from upstairs, I think Jeff Stoutland would still be here because I don't believe Nick Sirianni wanted to change anything. I believe he's been coerced or bullied or led astray, you could say, by the sentiment or by the owner or I don't know who it is. I don't know. Maybe it is the pressure. You see what I'm saying here, where people are going to look at Sirianni as the villain. I actually wonder if Nick Sirianni stuck to his guns, I don't think Jeff Stoutland would be gone right now.
Well, I think Jeff is gone because they're changing the schemes, and that's why he's gone. If I'm going to boil it down,
would they be changing the scheme?
Well, that's you mentioned some of the criticism, and I would ask every person who says that, forget about Jeff Stoutland for a minute. Do you want this offense to change? Do you want it to change, or do you not want it to change? Like that to me is like, you have people that drastically want this offense to change, that are sick of this offense, that no longer want to play this style, which is fine. But then you want to fit Jeff Stoutland into that mix and say, run, Mike McDaniel's run scheme.
And when
you can't have it, you can't have it both ways.
When you say that, though, just to be clear, are you talking about fans, or are you talking about actual?
I'm talking about it. Everybody that I've seen who has said Jeff was, gone over the top, with Jeff was disrespected, and Jeff was this, and Jeff was that, and yet almost to a person, 100% of those people want them to drastically change the offense. Like, I don't, you can't have it both ways. You can't have it both ways. If you want to run the Kyle Shanahan offense, Jeff doesn't want to run it. Can't have it both ways.
But when I say that, I mean, like, there's the social pressure or the outside pressure.
Oh, why the Eagles do it? I mean,
there is people inside the organization, John, who fit the description you gave as well. Who don't want to play this offense anymore. AJ Brown's been visibly angry about I mean, these are all the storylines that have unfolded. They're not all fan driven. Now the fans obviously make the most noise.
I mean, I'm gonna give the players a little bit of a pass, only from the perspective, like AJ's worried about the passing game. He's not worried about the running game. He wants to put me out in the passing game, but it's a bigger part of the picture. I'm just saying that's the way they're thinking. From the standpoint, the most important question that needs to be answered is where does this change come from? From knowing Nick as long as I have, boy, I got a tough time thinking he wanted to go in this direction. So
yeah, me too.
Who could force him in that direction? I think people would immediately default to Howie Roseman. I don't think it's Howie Roseman one bit. And I don't think by any stretch of the imagination Jeffrey Lurie is overbearing. I've tried to explain this over the years. He is suggestive.
Yeah.
Is the word I'm going to use. And he makes very clear by his suggestions what he wants done. And you can go about it two ways. You can push back like Doug Peterson did, and then you're probably out of a job. Or you can go the more political route, which I think Nick does. And ultimately, and I say it pretty consistently, Jeffrey Lurie's the best owner in the NFL. There's a lot of bad owners. And he's got flaws, but he legitimately wants to win, which it seems like, well, everybody wants to win. No, they don't. No, they don't. They might say they want to win, but
it's hard to put him over Bob Kraft as the best owner in the NFL.
I think he's the best because he does the most. That doesn't mean you're going to have the most success, but he does the most to try to win. Again, if you get Tom Brady, you got a cheat code, and you might look better.
You're talking about the money that he spends. Everything that goes into it. Gotcha.
I'm just saying he does more than anybody else. Or, you could say Kraft. There's a couple guys who are in the always a couple guys, but I would grade him, and maybe I'm biased because I'm here. I would grade him as the best owner in the NFL. However, that doesn't mean he's perfect. And he's not a football expert. He hires football experts, and he's smart enough usually to get out of the way. But I would think of everybody in the building who is susceptible to, whether you want to call it, whether you want to call it emotional thinking or stuff you hear from the fan base or sports talk or whatever. If anybody is susceptible, everybody's susceptible. But the guy most susceptible is the owner, because he doesn't have the expertise of the actual football experts. So I think, Jeffrey Lurie hears everything. We talk about it all the time. And how shitty this offense look and this, and it's the highest paid offense and it should be this, and why isn't it this? I think he all of that filters to him. I don't think he's sitting there listening to WIP, but all of it filters to him. And he develops this mindset. And I think he's very suggestive. I got to write down that word because that's what I'm going to use. Because, blink twice, Nick. It seems like I've heard this guy talk about his offense too much and talk about, his belief in his offensive abilities to think that he just woke up one day and said, all right, I can't figure this out.
There is another way to look at it too, John, which, I don't know if you'll entertain that. Nick and Petula weren't listening to anybody. I mean, they changed the run game last year. They didn't even talk to Jeff as it was reported.
Guess what? You know what? In week 5 of 2024, Lane Johnson didn't change the run game. Jordan Mailata didn't change the run game. Nick Serriani changed the run game. A lot of this is how you brand it. He's the head coach. That's what I said at the start. When you have these conflated titles and they're introduced into the game, run game coordinator, pass game, now defensive run game coordinator, defensive. People outside get this inflated thought process. I don't even know what to call it. It's the same as it's always been. Vic Fangio's in charge of the Eagles defense. He runs the Eagles defense. The Eagles might, Kristen Parker was the pass game coordinator. No. Vic didn't listen to Kristen Parker when he's calling cover 6 on one player, cover 4. The guy in charge is either, in this case, it's, dual. And it was before Nick and Kevin, it was Nick and Kellen. And before Nick and Kellen, it was Nick and Brian. And then it was Nick and Shane. They're in charge of the offense. Nobody's telling them what to do on the offense. Nobody else in that building. You had a bunch of people, a couple thought Scott Leffler was involved. Okay, think what you want to think. They're in charge of the offense. They've always been in charge of the offense. When they were successful and had the 6th highest rushing season in NFL history, they were in charge of the running game. Jeff Stoutland is not in charge of the running game, never has been in charge of the running game just because he has run game coordinator next to his name. So I think a lot of people don't understand that. I really don't.
Well, you understand that that is how it was reported. I mean, it's not, I don't think it's a narrative. I mean, Tim McManus wrote that, and people ran with it. BLJ tweeted out, Nick Sirianni disrespect.
No. He had the title. It's again, he's responsible for drawing up the concepts and essentially, if you want to compare it to a business, you're writing a report and sending it up the chain. And what comes out might not be what you wrote.
Yeah, right. That's fair.
That's all I'm trying to say.
You would think that send up the chain would have come from somebody that's earned a little bit of, a little bit more respect in the building, which that's what the NFL is. I mean, you have a head coach, you have an offensive coordinator, you have a defensive coordinator. All right, John, how bad is this? All right, because you're a pragmatic, practical, logical person. All right, we have a lot of fans listening. All right, fans are by nature fanatical, emotional. This feels like the end, man. Not the end of the Eagles forever, but you lose Jeff Stoutland. It feels like a proverbial slamming of the window that many fans saw wide open after the Super Bowl last year, with an opportunity to go and seek and reach the golden era of the Eagles. Now it feels like that window has slammed shut. And we've turned it over, the offense, to a 33-year-old guy who's never called a play in his life. as much as I like Sean Mannion, I do now wonder what the hell the direction of the Eagles is going in. How bad is this? How ugly is it? Is it the end of this era of the Eagles? What's the truth in your eyes?
No, it's not the end because, they still have a bunch of good players. And if they make some good decisions, losing even the best offensive line coach, even, they would have lost big. It's not because personnel is more important. So it's not a death sentence by any stretch of the imagination. They're not going to be as good when it comes to an offensive line coach. So, part of what I said about Sean Mannion stays the same as well on the offensive line in that, I think the Eagles offense is going to be better than last season because it's tough to get worse. And I think
you do agree now it's going to be a lot different though, right? Now that's certainly what it looks like at this point.
Well, they're trying that. I got 1,000,000% yesterday. I mean, this offense is going to do what everybody wants it to do, or that's the plan at least. As soon as Mike Tyson punches you in the face, the plan can change. But that's the plan. Whether, but yeah, I mean, again, I'll say this. I'm very consistent. This is one of the best offensive line coaches of all time. Of all time. He's a coach. Landon Dickerson, get healthy. Cam Jurgens, get healthy. Lane Johnson returns, which now there's a big question. Does Lane want to go through this with a brand new offensive line coach? I don't know.
Yeah,
but if he does and he's healthy, Jordan Mailata thinks he plays poorly last year, although he didn't, but that's his mindset. And he gets better and closer to where he was the year prior. Tyler Steen gets better, or you get somebody else at right guard, and all of a sudden you have one of the best offensive lines in the league again. Still, now where it'll affect you is more longer term. Are you going to develop players at the same rate? That's doubtful.
You're talking about specifically Stoutland and the O-line and that.
Yeah.
Well, my question would be to respond to you. I do agree with you that if the players are healthier and they play better, then they're going to have better results. But we are looking at a massive change to the offense. Do you think they're built to play that way as much as people want?
No,
I'm guilty of this. How many times have I been up here bitching? I'm guilty of it. But you did bring up a good point last night. Is this the style for Saquon Barkley?
I don't like it at all.
All these players, Jalen, Saquon, all these guys. I mean, even Devontae and AJ, as talented and as good as they are, you've shed the light on. Well, they're not going to be a manufactured touch type of guys. They're not going to be you know what I mean? They don't line up all over them. Now Devontae can line up more places, but how do you see it, John, from that perspective?
Yeah, I talked about it 2 days before they made, before this came out. I wrote it. I'm like, why do you want to run, a bunch of wide zone, bunch of stretch with this offensive line and a running back who's not the most patient running back in the world. It's more of a home run hitter. From my perspective, you want to execute what you did in 2024 to such a high degree and get to the second level with those combo blocks and duo blocks and pins and pulls and power football. And yeah, there's some room for a stretch, maybe, to get some better balance in there, and maybe you can increase it, but to build it on that, it makes no sense to me. Then you have to change the personnel. So, it's the same thing. If you want to, you can set all your, well, they're great. They can do that. That's a lot when you go to the passing game. That's what, people get in their feelings. Well, Jalen does this. He can do that. He did it against Minnesota. He can do it every week. Okay. From every coach I've talked to, you build around the strengths of the players, not the weaknesses of the player. You try to mask those weaknesses. You try to get them better with those weaknesses, but you build around the strengths. You don't build around the weaknesses. What sense does that make? So I don't know. I look at Landon Dickerson and his health situation specifically, and I think he's the best example because I think everybody watched the Eagles saw how much difficulty Landon had moving last year because he was just hurt. He deserves a lot of credit to playing through all the stuff he was playing through. And now you want him to be a movement-based offensive lineman like he's, a 295-pound Denver offensive lineman from Mike Shanahan days, cutting people outside. You want him moving like Kelsey down the field? Does that make sense to anyone? Maybe with Cam Jurgens, if he's healthy, maybe he can fit. Everybody else, Howie's got to start drafting different styles of offensive linemen. So much is impacted by it. It's crazy to me. They won 11 games, Zander, and they're acting like a 3-win team. That's what's crazy to me. And by the way, we're getting ready for the Super Bowl. These teams aren't dominant teams.
No.
I could see them going back and being a third-place team next year. So to say, your window is shut or it's shutting and you have to.
How much are you expecting the offense to change?
Pretty significantly.
Yeah,
talking to people last night.
They can be a good team playing the new offense.
Well, that's why I wouldn't do it. But that's my concern. Like, why are they acting like a 3-win team? Like, where does that come from? And I can't tell you with 100% where does it come from. I don't think it comes from Nick Serriani. I don't think it comes from Howie Roseman. So who's left?
The owner who's left.
But yeah, I'm flabbergasted that they want to change this thing so dramatically. At least it seems that way. I guess it's human nature to want what you don't have instead of really accentuate what you do have. I guess it's just human nature. It's not even about football. It's about, I want to be able to do this. Well, you can't do that well. So why don't you focus on what you do well?
How close does it feel like you are, or does it feel to you like they are to a rebuild? I know they still have good talent, so they're not there yet, but it does feel like they're one step closer. This has been a big overhaul this summer so far, and I don't think it's done yet, folks. You're talking about major changes to this team. Major changes.
Yeah, they're going to change the quarterbacks coach again. That's pretty obvious. That'll be the 5th consecutive change.
So just to keep track, everybody who was upset about Kevin Petula, another new OC for Jalen. All right, now you have another new OC. You have a whole new system is what appears what they're going to try and do. Another new quarterback coach.
Yeah.
Oh boy, I hope this goes better. I hope this goes all right. We will say, John, we got to get some of these super chats, man. The people are fired up today. I want to welcome and thank everybody for being here. Jeff Stoutland is officially gone, everybody. He steps away from the Eagles. We will see if he lands somewhere or he just kind of stays in a role with the organization. It was kind of weird. I think I saw Rappaport tweet out that he's going to stay in a role with the Eagles, and then he deleted the tweet.
I didn't see that. I saw Adam said this was what the news he was talking about.
I did see that too.
I'm like, okay, all right, settle down. But anyway, because everybody thought it was Vic, it was Stout. Now, we had talked about Stout as well. I said, it's a two-way street. How many times did I say that? I don't know if he wants to be back with a new offensive coordinator, but I don't think this was Sean Mannion related at all. after talking to some people last night.
Like you don't think Mannion came in and was like, "I need my
no.
Okay.
No, he was offered the opportunity to come back, and he chose not to.
Good stuff. Let's go to our super chats this morning. We got plenty to talk about. We're going to talk to John Stoleness in hour number 2. A lot of good conversation to be had this morning. Let's check in with James Carver. James, what's going on, brother? Good to see you in here. Thank you for the big super chat. He has a couple of them. We'll get to all of them right now. James says, $50 super chat, by the way. Thank you, James. As an odd bird, Eagles and Dallas and Pitt fan from my 2 original games as a kid, I've long still hated the Cowboys since 1994. This feels like a mirror of Dallas in 94 with the firing of Jimmy Johnson, with Stout being the start of a 90s Cowboys effect. This is bad.
Well, yeah, look, I think people, first of all, Jimmy was the head coach. Second of all, Barry Switzer came in, I think, and I'm doing this off at the top of my head, I think they lost the NFC Championship game and then won the Super Bowl in Barry Switzer's first 2 years. Now, he did it with Jimmy's team. That's fair. But there wasn't a dramatic drop-off. They were still the best team in football for the most part for the next 2 years. So, I mean, even in that traumatic of a situation where it's the head coach and long term, it obviously hurt the Cowboys. And maybe long term, this hurts the Eagles. But short term, I mean, those guys are already developed on the offensive line. So if they're healthy and Lane's back and Jordan, they're developed. They're finished products. What you got to worry is the second wave. So, and again, everybody's coming off a down year. So I think they're going to be focused to have a bounce back year. Most of the guys on offense. So, yeah, I mean, again, short term, not much of a rip. And certainly there's a big difference between an offensive line coach and a head coach. And then the Cowboys were the best team in football for at least 2 years after Jimmy left.
Here's worst behavior. Says, J-Mac, talk me off the ledge that we're not about to rebuild. Appreciate y'all.
Well, I think that's dependent on the players more than the coaches. And again, the 2 biggest being AJ and Lane. If you're going to trade,
try and make a push to keep AJ, doesn't it? I mean, if
everybody
else, that means it feels like to me they're going to try and keep AJ. I don't know if they'll be successful.
Well, I agree, and I don't know if they're going to be successful. That's the exact point. So if he leaves, and Lane leaves and says, I don't want to. Stout's gone. I don't want to be involved with this. Then you have a different conversation than if they're there. And then there's going to be. I wouldn't say rebuild because again, they're an 11-win team. I would say retool, maybe take a step back to take 2 forward. I don't think they're going to win 3 games and get a top 5 pick. They still have a lot of good players. So no, I don't think they're in rebuilding mode.
It does feel like, and we can't speak with certainty obviously about this. It does feel like the logical next step would be Lane Johnson retiring, right? Jeff, you said it. Jeff Stoutland, 63. He didn't want to do a whole new thing. Does Lane want to do a whole new thing? I mean, doesn't those systems ask offensive linemen to do a lot different things than what, Jeff Stoutland's power scheme did?
Well, I don't know. It's more things. It's different things. I don't know if it's more, but it's
different. That's what I meant. Different.
It's certainly different. And yeah, maybe it does, right? But I find it, I'm still, if you, on the 50-50 scale, I'm still on the positive side of 50 that Lane will be back. I just don't think he wants to end his career the way that season ended, missing the last 8 games. I think this might be his last season, but I still think he's going to come back. But it wouldn't shock me if he doesn't come back because of the change. If he doesn't come back, it's going to be because of the change. I would say if Stout was here and they're going to run the same scheme, he'd be back. But
we will see what happens there. Here's Pin. What's up, Pin? They could have adjusted the offense and kept Stoutland in the building. They insulted a great position coach and lost him with their arrogance.
Yeah, I mean, look, they offered him the job. He didn't want the job because they were changing. So you can't have it both ways, people. And most of you want them to change the offense. So, to me, they're completely conflicting things. Like, they didn't fire him, which I said at the start of this, before it all came up, the Philadelphia Eagles will not fire Jeff Stoutland.
Right.
And they didn't fire him. He was offered the opportunity to come back as the offensive line coach. He declined.
This is a good chat here. Theo, I'm in agreement with you, brother. He says this. Theo says, with new blocking scheme, will we need new O-linemen to block this new scheme?
Yeah, probably.
Asking our maulers to block outside zone. Curious, kind of the point I was trying to make on Lane. Theo, you summed it up better than I did. John, your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I wrote about it 2 days before it happened. It doesn't make any sense with the group you have together, which, by the way, when healthy, is the best group in the NFL. Doesn't make any sense. So you're going to have to start shifting. And you're going to draft different styles. Like Caden Proctor, everybody is getting Caden Proctor going to the Eagles. That's old school Eagles thinking. If you truly want to go in this direction, all indications are they want to go in this direction. You have to start thinking about different styles of offensive linemen. Yes. It doesn't make any sense to me. It doesn't make any sense to me.
Here's James Carver. James, thank you for the super chat. He says, start of the show, James said, exactly. Nick and KP are first to blame, but also Mannion could have and should have come in and said he was restoring Stout and his work would be the basis for what Sean was going to do. This is on KP and Nick. I put Nick above KP, but I do understand where you're coming from.
Yeah, I wouldn't, people want to blame Kevin for the Middle East situation. Yeah, I mean, it would be Nick. You got to blame Nick.
In the Middle East situation.
So it's fine. If you want to blame Nick, that's fine. But yeah, Sean Mannion doesn't have the cachet to walk in the building and say, I'm going to build my whole offense around Jeff Stoutland. That's putting way too much on his plate as well. I mean, I don't think a lot of people understand the power dynamics of an NFL building, and like assistant coaches don't demand things, don't enforce things, don't set directives or directions. They don't. It's not just Philadelphia, it's everywhere. They don't. They'd have a higher position. And if they do, it's like sort of an interim situation. Like obviously if you fire, say, your offensive coordinator in season, and then maybe you need some more help from the position coaches to get through it. But when you have an entrenched offensive coordinator, not even just one who's not, interim, who just stepped into the building or stepped into the position in most cases, then you might have a little bit of shift with people contributing more. But there's a distinct flow chart, and I think people don't understand it. Like the Leffler stuff during the season when there was that little trickle of, hey, they ran the same play Bowling Green ran. And people are just bending over backwards to say, oh, he's part of the offense. No, he's not.
There's a collaborative effort, though, involved, right? I mean, Scott Leffler can, in theory, say, hey, I got an idea, and they can take it. Doesn't mean he's got control, but.
Yes, there's a collaborative effort, yes. And again, I use the business example. Everything funnels up, and the report you write might not be the report they release.
Exactly. That's fair. Good way to look at it. Here's Vitality. Vulnerable. What's up, brother? Appreciate your super chat. He says this, $20. He says, I'm speculating, but I believe they're setting up Serriani to be scapegoated. The info the team willingly gives reporters is calculated. Ironically, firing Nick will contribute to the bad optics of our leadership's impatience.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds like you've been listening to me. They branded this Nick Sirianni's off season. This is all on Nick. And maybe Nick will tell me somewhere down the road. I don't know, but I'm surprised, a little bit surprised he didn't say, you know what, if I'm going out, because everybody's renting space in the NFL. Everybody's replaceable, as you're seeing with Jeff Stoutland. Everybody has a shelf life. Players obviously, will age out. But even executives and personnel people and coaches, everybody's renting space, and they will be replaced at some point. Hey, you could say we're all renting space in life. We're all going to be replaced.
We all will return to the soil, John.
Yes. So, from that standpoint, I'm a little bit surprised that Nick didn't, if I'm going to go out, I'm going to go out the way I want to go out. I'm not going to do all this bullshit.
The last time we had a coach do that, he was fired, Doug Peterson. So,
yeah, I mean, obviously Nick is well taken care of, but
something stinks down there, John, at the NovaCare complex right now. I don't know what it is exactly, but something smells like crap down there.
Wow. It's I don't think it's that to that degree, but I think all of this stems from the leader of the organization, and that's the owner.
Here is Carver again. What's up, Carver? Thank you for your support as always. Is it, if it affects anyone's future, more certainly, I think it's Jordan Mailata, who's always been less of a long-term player in his own words. And with Stout leaving, I bet this is Jordan's final contract and he retires from music, et cetera, in 2029. Well, I can't think that far ahead, but an interesting comment.
Yeah. Well, somebody wrote about Jordan retiring this year and he was laughing about it because he mentioned
that for him, though, where he's not a guy that wants to play, till he's 40.
Well, he's a very talented guy.
He's going to be on TV. He'll be able to do whatever he wants, man.
He can seemingly do anything, but I don't know. He's in the prime of his career, and 2029 is an eternity in professional football. So a lot of things can happen. It's just because when people look at contracts are by and large 2-year deals. They might be to 2029 in paper, but occasionally with really superstar players, you get to 3 years before you have an out. But most teams are savvy enough to set them up that they're 2-year deals, and then they roll them over from there.
Here's Rich Nutt. Rich, thanks for the super chat. Morning all. John, is Stoutland a free agent or is he under contract and couldn't make a lateral move? Good question, Rich.
He is under contract. So in theory, if the Eagles wanted to play hardball and he wanted to coach somewhere else, they could block it, but I don't think in a million years they would do that.
Yeah, that would be an even worse look. Here's Penn. J-Mac, I agree we'll need different styles of O-linemen. I also think we need a different style of quarterback. Life after Jalen is now. Rebuild time. Uh-oh. I don't think that's where you're going, Penn. Not yet, at least.
No, and that's the thing. I mean, the crux is because, let's be honest, the quarterback is the most important player by far, most impactful player. I always tell the story. I don't do an impactful list. I never do impactful lists because it's the same answer every time. I think it's a boring list because whether you're the best quarterback or you're the worst quarterback, you're the most impactful player on the field for that particular team because of the nature of the position. And why you would try to pound a square peg in a round hole with Jalen Hurts, I will never understand until I shuffle off this mortal coil. I will never understand. Never understand.
That was a bar, John. Shuffle off this mortal coil. I like that.
So to have and I use the word unique with Jalen Hurts all the time and try to turn him into a traditional quarterback is like the dumbest thing I've ever heard. Considering the success, you already have 5 years of a 5-year sample size. Considering the success, yeah, does it limit your margin of error and you want to increase the margin? Yes, that doesn't mean you're not trying to evolve. Doesn't mean you're not trying to do things you haven't done well and you want to get better at that kind of stuff. But at the core, at the foundation, take advantage of what he does well. I don't know who's responsible for taking the running game off the table with the quarterback, and they didn't completely do it, but you get the point. Restricting it. I don't know if it was Jalen. I don't know if it was Kevin. I find it very hard to believe it was Kevin. I don't think it was Nick. I don't even know if it was the organization. I don't know who. But somebody's got to convince Jalen Hurts that to get back to where they were, he's got to be the +1 in the running game. Whether they use pin and pull, power, duo, inside zone, outside zone, doesn't matter. He's got to be the +1 in the running game.
Yeah, I agree.
So somebody better convince him of that. And I don't know who. And if it's got it,
do you think he does need convincing? Do you think it was partly on Jalen?
I don't know. I said I don't know if he needs convincing. You might have to convince 3 layers. You might have to convince Jeffrey and then Nick.
That's
and
what I'm
Jalen.
wondering. How much is it Jalen versus
Somebody's got to convince all these people that you can't have the type of offense you want with this quarterback unless you utilize him in the running game.
I've been asking this question all summer here. Here's Roll Philly. What's up, Roll? Good to see you. J-Max Z. Do you think people are showing that they don't want to coach with Nick, or do you think it's more organizational?
No, I don't. No, I don't think people don't want to coach with Nick. Again, I people with options didn't choose the Eagles for a lot of reasons.
Presumably, Nick was one of those reasons, no?
Potentially, but I think anything's anything's possible. I'm not going to say 100% no. I find it very hard to believe that he was on anybody's high list of that's why I don't want to go to Philly. I find that very hard to believe. Guys with options, again, maybe if they could have had Mike McDaniel to have a real discussion and they convinced him that it seems like what they're going to do, maybe he would have wanted to come here.
Well, what about Stout? I mean, forget those other guys that aren't here.
Well, in Stout's instance, I mean, he's 64. He's going to be 64 next week. Checked that yesterday. And they're basically, if you're 64 and you've had the resume that he's had, 27 Pro Bowlers, I think 10 first-team All-Pros. I forget the second team. Yeah, it is second team All-Pros, and it's like 14 or 15. It's ridiculous. And you're saying, well, we're going to ship things up at 64. So you're going to have to change everything you do, everything the way you teach guys. Now, obviously, there's bare minimum techniques and fundamentals that don't change, but you get the point. And he said, I don't want to do that at this stage of his career. I mean, ultimately, that's what happened here. Which is, fine. That's understandable. And, to last 13 years through 3 different head coaches is pretty amazing to begin with. So, I mean, this is not rare. You have guys come in and blow out the entire coaching staff, new coaches, and they want to bring in their guys and they're changing plot and they want to work with who they're comfortable with. So to be able to do that through Chip Kelly and Doug Peterson and Nick Sirianni, again, there was a report by Bruce Feldman, who's one of the best college football reporters in this country. It has since been confirmed. Jeff was out the door when Nick got here because he was considering, like, I don't know this guy. What am I? and they talked him back, and it worked out beautifully.
So it's kind of just a part of the coaching.
Yes.
Yeah, it's a part of the whole thing.
Yeah.
It's rare you get an O-line coach for 13 years through 4 or 5 different offensive coordinators, 3 different head coaches. It's rare. It's
unbelievably rare.
But it also shed light on, hey, what's going on if this guy left? He's survived everything. He survived.
Well, but I think
everything. You know, he didn't survive this. He's gone.
But even the difference between 55 and 64, like I think it was still. Say if this was the change from Chip Kelly to Doug Peterson, but they said, well, we're going to change the scheme and we're going to, because we brought in a Mike McDaniel style coach, I think he'd be on board. I think at this stage of his career, he's like, I don't want to do that. I think it's different. You know, what, you know, what if you told Vic, hey, you can't run your shit? You think he'd be back?
No, he would not be back. There's no doubt about that. All right, John.
Now that's different because but it's not a perfect comparison because Vic's in charge, but he's not in charge of the offense. But you get the point.
All right, John, here we go. Hour 2, getting them ready for hour 2. We're going to have John Stoleness here. All right, a lot to dissect, and there's still plenty of things to talk about, and we will get to all of it. I think figuring out, I don't know, John, I know you're not a fan of this question, but just for the sake of asking it, do you put someone to blame here? I know we've kind of talked about it. Do you think someone is more to blame than somebody else? Is it too unclear at this point? I know the blame game isn't a fun thing to do, but it does feel fitting to talk at least.
We are not here to assign blame. No, I don't think anybody's to blame except circumstance. So it depends. Like to me, why he's leaving is because they are planning on changing styles of offense. So who's to blame for that? If you have that answer, there you have that's who you assign blame to.
I called myself out last night and I said, boy, we're going to get what we wished for. So let's hope it works, because how many times have we bitched about me included? I'll put me at the top of the list. Forget I can't speak for everybody listening.
Well, I think everybody who wants change or has one, or at least all the people that have spoken to me who want change, they mainly focus on the passing game. Like it doesn't, like it's not married to the running game. And if you want to go to these McVay, Shanahan style offenses, you have to change the running game as well. So you can't just, you can say, well, just use that running game and use that passing game. Well, then it's not the Shanahan McVay style of offense.
These are some big changes coming, John. Massive changes. Hashtag thank you, Stout. I love that in the chat. Appreciate that. Here's Bearded Willie. This feels like the classic Eagles overcorrection. Boy, I think.
Well, I'm with you there because they won 11. I feel like I have to remind people they won 11 fucking games in the NFL. They won 11 games. And it's like I'm talking about a 5-win team. It's crazy. And again, expectations are not necessarily a bad thing until you overreact to, their expectations were to go back to the Super Bowl. They were the only team in the NFL that won a back-to-back division title, which tells you the upheaval in this league from year to year. In their shitty season where they're ripping everything down to the studs, which they're not, but I'm exaggerating.
Feels like they are. Does feel like that. Whether it's...
I'm exaggerating for effect. They were the only team in the NFL that back-to-back division champions. They won double-digit games. And people are like, well, you got to rip the whole thing down.
Johnny, what's your response to the narrative or the perspective? which BLG shared out, which I read his tweet earlier in the show, basically tweeted out that, the culture guy, the culture head coach. Let me see if I can read his exact tweet for you guys.
Yeah, BLG's not a Nick fan, by the way.
No, he's not. No, he's not. He tweeted out, Nick Sirianni disrespected Jeff Stoutland. Not really what you want to see for the culture, for the good culture, for the good culture CEO head coach. My question for you would be, how bad of a look is this on Nick? I know you don't want to go down that road, but the way it was reported, it looks like he made decisions, without discussing it with his best positional coach and Jeff Stoutland. Seemingly let Patullo, I don't know if you want to view it like that, overstepped Jeff Stoutland when it wasn't working on offense. Did he perhaps lose the locker room's respect because of this? I don't know. I don't think so, but I think it's worth asking at this point. I mean, it does feel like even if Nick isn't the head of the snake in terms of this decision making, it does feel like he could be, perceived wrong, or at least the perception could change in the locker room with his players.
Well, certainly the offensive linemen. Yeah, I don't think that's something to keep an eye on, because I don't think they're going to be happy with this, to say the least. But I mean, most people understand the business of it and understand change is inevitable. So yeah, I have no problem. I mean, certainly if you want to, portray, I sometimes, does anybody like their boss out there? How many people like their bosses in the world? Some do. There's some good bosses, but most people don't like their bosses, because if you're a boss, sometimes you got to make difficult decisions that are not the right decision for an individual, but they might be the right decision for the collective. Believe it or not, Nick can be an asshole at times, which, he's told the story of, by the way, before Kevin Patullo got the offensive coordinator job. He was sort of the guy, because he was close to Nick for a long time. He was sort of the guy that would tell Nick that when he was the associate head coach that, hey, dude, scale it back. You're being a bit of an asshole. So I tell the story with Doug Nussmeier all the time. Doug Nussmeier in 2024 they were going down to play New Orleans. Well, it happened to be LSU was playing the day before, and obviously his son, Garrett, was starting quarterback of LSU, and he wanted to go watch Garrett play, as most fathers would if they were in town. And he didn't want to ask Nick. And Kevin Patullo went to him and said, why, what are you talking about? Go ask him. Go watch your kid. And he's like, he didn't want to do it. And, Kevin told him, hey, he wants to go watch the game. Don't be an asshole. Yada, yada, yada. He said, for people who say, he's so close to Kevin, that's why he fired Kevin. DK McDonald's, he was close. For those who remember DK McDonald was at his wedding. He fired him. To be a boss, you gotta make difficult decisions. So, and he will be an asshole at times, and that could be a good thing. That could be a bad thing. But there's this weird, I guess, narrative, and the Eagles play into it. They talk about their culture all the time. So if you talk about the culture, it's about, well, then he's got to placate to everybody. He's got to make that doesn't exist in the real world. I would say, when we usually talk about it with players, we usually talk about it with agents. You have 90 players together. Not everybody's going to get along. Not everybody's going to be on the same page. But the good culture coaches are the ones who get the most of that group on the same page. And I think over the long haul, I think it's fair to call him a culture coach. People get upset at this one, and it wasn't even a decision as far as letting him go. But if they're upset at the way it was handled, and if they find it disrespectful, I think you don't understand the flow chart.
Well, it's fair. The other thing about being a boss is if you make the bad decision or you make those decisions, ain't nobody got to live with the result more than.
Well, exactly.
So,
And that's the difficult part of their jobs.
Exactly right. Exactly right. All right, John, here's my next question for you before we get John Stoleness on. We got about 18 minutes until we get to John. I'm curious. I can't wait to hear what John Stoleness has to say. Looking forward to talking to him. What's next? What's next with O-line coach? What's next with the Eagles offense? What's next with Saquon Barkley, Jalen Hurts, and the offensive line? What is next for the Eagles now? All right, the Jeff Stoutland era is gone. We're going to talk about why for a long time, I'm sure.
Well, they have to get an offensive line coach. Obviously, they already have a list together. Nobody's going to share that with me, but and you know, I for whatever whomever the next guy is going to be, I don't envy him because that is a difficult standard to live up to. Very difficult. But again, I use that, and I wasn't going to use that switcher example, but somebody brought that up in the chat, and people forget that. Like, the new guy coming in's already got a finished product. So in that instance, at least in the short term, if guys are healthy, they should be fine on the offensive line. I'm sure there'll be some hiccups to the new scheme, but again, the talent overwhelms everything. To me, it's more of a longer term issue. But most of the big time offensive line coaches are already under contract. So you have to look at maybe what they're doing. Same thing at offensive coordinator and passing game coordinator. Who do you think is the young ascending coach on the offensive line? And we're going to see who they think it is. But, you know, so I'll just give you the AFC East offensive line coaches. I'm looking over there. Anybody know any of these guys? Pat Meyer, Zach Yenzer, Steve Hyden, Doug Marrone. People might remember Doug because he played. You know, I don't know what people are expecting, but there aren't many Jeff Stoutland.
How big Jeff Stoutland was.
Yeah,
I mean, he became larger than the position.
Oh yeah,
Rightfully so.
And there's a couple other guys like Bill Callahan's in that category.
Yeah, Bill Callahan. Yeah.
But if you talk about, and I'm looking at him, and you talk, it's Bill Callahan, Dwayne Ledford, who just went to Baltimore. Hank Fraley, people would recognize it in Detroit, but I don't put him in that category. And Stout. So, you know, the other guys are just, you know, and the guys under contract right now. The Raiders, obviously, new coach. Giants with Harbaugh hasn't hired one. I do not believe. Eagles now. And that's it. So, you know, and the guys who got fired, Chris Cooper's out there. He was Minnesota's offensive line coach. I don't think you want him. I forget who the Giants' offensive line coach was, but I guarantee you don't want him. So, I mean, you know, you're trying to uncover maybe somebody who's been an assistant offensive line coach who you think has some talent, has some coaching talent, you know, and we're going to see what that looks like. But I would look at San Francisco, and I would look at, you know, Miami last year, and
the fit for the scheme, right?
Yeah. You know, some of the other guys who are off the tree, off the Shanahan tree, I would look at those guys. But it's not going to be somebody that excites you. I guarantee you that.
Boy, it feels like the window is shutting here for the Eagles. I know I don't want to go there yet because it's the players first. I do agree with you on that, John, but holy shit, man. It's a lot. I don't know, man. It's a lot of change happening right now in Philly, and it does feel
change. People are scared of change, too. They think they want change, but they don't want change.
Here's Philly Don. Let's go to Philly Don. What's up, Philly Don? Stout's gone. What I want to know now is who is out. There we go. Just hit on this. Who is out there available that can come in and that can do half as good a job as this late in the process? Yeah, I don't think anybody's doing that great of a job compared to Jeff.
Well, here's the question. If you're going to the scheme they're going to, presumably, so let's use Kyle Shanahan's scheme. Is there somebody out there who can do a better job at that than Stoutland would do at that? And that's possible. Is there anyone who can do a better job?
That's not Jeff's typical style. Okay, that's fair. So you think that? So are you John? Give me your personal opinion, and not about what they're going to do, but whether they're going to do it. Do you believe they're going to change they're really going to run this West Coast? Do you think they're really that's going to be their offense now?
No. I don't believe it. I believe it. I've been through this. Right now,
I think they're going to do all this shit, and then they're going to revert.
February 4th, which was yesterday.
Yep.
I heard it from multiple sources that we're doing this. We're doing this, basically.
The West Coast, the big change, the offensive change.
Yeah, I don't want to say West Coast, but more of the Shanahan style, more of the McVay, more.
Yep.
We're doing this, and I believe that will continue throughout the off season, throughout OTAs, and then as they get to training camp, even at the start of training camp, and then as they get to late in the preseason. You'll see a slight scale back. And then the first couple games, they'll probably try to do all these different things. And then you'll see the scale back. And Nick will be trying to win games by hell or high water. And that will mean take advantage of your fucking players.
And you'll have no Jeff Stoutland to boot.
But that's my personal opinion of how it will unfold. And I've already seen it unfold. That's why it's my opinion. I've seen it unfold. Like Kellen Moore is the best example of this because Kellen came from outside the organization. So you could look at his offenses in Dallas and the Chargers, and then look at his offense here, and then look at his offense in New Orleans. I encourage anyone to do that as an exercise. And by the way, I think that's good coaching because Kellen came in here and said, all right, we're going to try to do some new stuff because that's what I was brought here for. And it wasn't working out to the desired effect. So you build around what you have. That's good coaching. I don't know why it's so tough to do it. But boy, the pull of the unknown is strong with human beings. The Eagles always want door number 3. You know, even if they got the car on, let's make a deal. No, let me go for door number 3, and you end up with a year's supply of turtle wax instead of the car that you could have had. People are weird, man.
We're gonna see how it turns out next year. All right. I think you're right, John, but I also think that if you get to this point and you've made the changes you've made, you better run this new offense. If they revert now, it's like it looks even worse.
Hey, Saquon, go out there and be an instinctive cutback running back.
Yeah, or Well, are they more equipped to do it than like you use the example? I'll go to the quarterback. You use the example a lot, which I think is a good example. Like, would you ask Brock Purdy or Joe Burrow to play dual threat, play RPO, play? You know what I mean? No, you wouldn't. Are the Eagles more capable at doing their style than they are at doing Jalen's style? Because Jalen's style or the Eagles' offense style, I should say, requires a certain skill set. Jalen does have their skill set, maybe not to their degree.
Well, I think ultimately they scale back to take advantage of Jalen. I mean, that's the crux of it. Let's be honest. So I think
I'm itching myself, John. I'm freaking itching myself already on this thing, man.
I think the crux of this thing is, and there's nothing wrong with the off season trying to get better in different areas that you haven't been great with. That's what the off season is for. You also have to. It's a big teaching time of the year for younger players specifically, but there's nothing wrong with trying to get better, and everybody should try to get better at all times. All times. But you should also build around the strengths of your players, which is the least controversial thing I've ever said. And there's so many people either don't believe that or will not acknowledge that all players are human beings and all players have deficiencies, even the best players. Nobody's perfect except Myles Garrett. That's an NFL joke. And everybody has things that they don't do well versus things they do well, and it's common sense to accentuate the things they do well.
Fair enough. A couple super chats, then we'll get to John Stoleness. Here's Alexander Harris. What's up, brother? You've said before the offensive coordinator job is a revolving door. So what happens to the scheme after the OC either leaves or gets fired? Does the scheme go back to Nick's scheme? That doesn't work. Like, why go this drastic?
Well, first of all, Nick's going to be gone this time as well. So you're going to have a new coach, and it will change, obviously, but it'll change likely in a completely different direction with a guy who has different thoughts and different concepts and different beliefs. And so it will change dramatically. But the idea, and Howie's explained this in the past, in the modern NFL in this era, and I'm not talking even 20 years ago, I'm talking within the last 10 years, there is no continuity at offensive coordinator and play caller. The only guys who have been around more than a few years are the longtime head coaches who call plays. Zach Taylor in Cincinnati, Matt LaFleur in Green Bay, Andy Reid, obviously, Sean McVay, Kyle Shanahan. That's it. Everybody else, I'm going to run it down real quick, and we got John. I know we're going to bring John on. Arizona, Mike LaFleur, 2026. Atlanta, Kevin Reese, 20. These are the offensive play callers. 2026. Declan Doyle's in Baltimore now. 2026. Joe Brady is going to, because now he's the head coach. He's been there. 2023. Dave Canales, 2024. Ben Johnson, 25. Munkins new. Schottenheimer, 25. Peyton, 23, because he left. Petzik, 26. 25. 23. 25. 26, 26. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16 new play callers. There's 32 teams. There is no patience in this league. The Eagles are not unique. In fact, they're ordinary. And that's where I criticize them, because they pride themselves on being ahead of the curve. They are ordinary when it comes to coaching. They're just as reactive as everybody else. And that's probably the biggest hurtful criticism I could give to them, because they think they're better than everybody else, and they're just like everybody else. They're ordinary when it comes to coaching.
One more super chat, then we'll get to John. Him Bison says, if we go and win the Super Bowl, how do you predict that everyone will try and spin it to still not give Nick credit and say he's not a good coach?
They will spin it. Well, I'm convinced that Nick could beat Sean McVay 10 more times in a row, and they'd still say Sean McVay is the better coach. Convinced.
All right, him Bison, good stuff. We got a couple more supers we'll get to after John Stoleness. Speaking of them, let's bring John Stoleness in right now here on Birds 365. He joins us. You can follow him on X at John Stoleness. Read some of his work at Bleeding Green Nation. John, how you doing on this Thursday morning? When I reached out to get you on, I did not expect this would be our main topic of conversation. How you doing today, my friend?
I'm doing good. Yeah, no, this was, I figured, we'll talk some Sean Mannion. We'll talk some Grizzard. We'll talk a little bit about what's moving forward. Super Bowl.
Poor Josh Grizzard gets moved to the back of the line. We can't talk about him just yet. We'll get some Josh Grizzard.
Tough scene, yeah.
Yeah. All right, John, I don't want to muddy the waters for you. Your initial reactions, obviously, a lot of shock. One of the most respected assistant coaches in NFL today, one of the best offensive line coaches in history. 13 years through 3 different head coaches. You never see that.
Mm-hmm.
And he's not making it to year 14. Your thoughts on Jeff Stoutland walking away?
Let me just crack my knuckles, get set for this because there's some thoughts here. So a couple of things. It's clear the Eagles wanted to change things offensively, and they had to. The passing game in the last 2 years has been substandard, subpar. Even winning the Super Bowl last year, it had flashes, but the offense was stale. It was ordinary. The players hated playing in it, right? I mean, so we all knew that something had to change. The schemes they were running were old and antiquated. And last year, the run game kind of fell apart. It got worse as the year went along. So we knew the change was coming to the offense here. So what the change that has occurred is you're bringing in this young, unproven guy in Sean Mannion, who might be good. We don't know. To take over the offense, a guy who's been a coach for 2 years, but was a backup quarterback for forever. And he is being given the keys to run this offense, which I think it kind of makes sense, right? If you bring in this young guy who's going to dramatically change the scheme, you're going to be under center more, you're going to do more pre-snap motion, you're going to do a lot of the stuff that Jeff Stoutland has never done before in his coaching career. I can understand that maybe there would be some kind of incompatibility there. Jeff Stoutland, who's been here forever, doesn't want to play second fiddle to an offensive coordinator, even though I will say, if you want to run the show, then apply to be an offensive coordinator. Like you could have made Jeff Stoutland the offensive coordinator if that's something he wanted to do or aspired to do. As an offensive line coach, you have to understand you're, underneath the offensive coordinator. Right. So, but this is not the first time the Eagles have changed offensive coordinators, as you just have said a minute ago. And Jeff Stoutland has managed to stay here through all of those changes. And so I really think that this whole thing goes back to last year when we've heard the reporting by now. You guys have been talking about it, that he had the run game duties stripped from him by Kevin Patullo and Nick Sirianni at some point during last season. And if you're Jeff Stoutland, imagine that the season before you designed a run game offense that allowed your running back to run for over 2,000 yards. Had the most dominant run game in the league. And clearly they're dealing with offensive line injuries, a shorter offseason this year to get ready for the season, and all that factored into things. But you're being told by this offensive coordinator who's buddies with the coach that all of a sudden you can't design the run game anymore. Well, how are you going to take that, right? You're not going to react fondly, and you're not going to respond well to that. Jeff Stoutland should not have had the run game duties taken away from him last year, especially because the run game didn't look a whole lot different even after it was taken away. And I'm talking scheme as well as results on the field. And so it seems this was mishandled just in the same way that the Sean Desai, Matt Patricia thing was mishandled. So to me, it all comes down to Nick Sirianni and how he's handling things. Like when what is going on inside that building? Because guys, we're the Super Bowl is being played in a couple of days, right? I mean, like it was 1 year ago, almost exactly, that the Philadelphia Eagles were hoisting the Lombardi Trophy up into the air, and we were talking Could we be looking at a mini dynasty here ourselves? A Super Bowl 2 years ago, a Super Bowl win this year. The defense is young and talented. All the offensive players are signed for forever. Like, they could win another one or two of these things. And now 12 months later, you've got A.J. Brown looking like he's on his way out the door. None of the top offensive coordinators with experience that you wanted to come play here. And don't think that this Jeff Stoutland thing didn't get around the league as an indication of like how the Eagles are running things inside the building. You've got a defensive coordinator who wasn't sure if he wanted to come back this year, and thankfully, hands to heaven, he is. It's more than just about the scheme changing and about differences and about all this kind of stuff. There's stuff going on inside that building that is not good. And as someone who's not on the inside, I can't tell you what it is. But for Jeff Stoutland to leave, it may have been necessary with Sean Mannion coming on board schematically for him to go. But the Eagles are not as good a football team with Jeff Stoutland someplace else.
No doubt about it. Great response there from Stoleness on the first question here. John, how bad of a look is it for Nick? Your buddy BLG wrote, disrespect, tweet went viral already. How bad of a look is this on Nick Seriani?
It's an awful look on Nick. I mean, his sole job is to try and keep the locker room together, and to kind of get everybody to kind of be rowing in the same direction, to massage different personalities and stuff like that. He mishandled 2023 in an awful way that almost got him fired 1 year after a Super Bowl. And it sure seems like he mishandled things here this season too, with how he removed the run game responsibilities from Jeff Stoutland. I mean, Stoutland, this is not a guy who's been overseeing a struggling running game for these last couple of years, and it was finally time to move on. I mean, Jeff Stoutland wasn't the problem with whatever was happening last year. It wasn't him. And so I think it's an awful look for a CEO head coach who has, in his time here in Philadelphia, failed at play calling, has seen his scheme deteriorate to the point where it's absolutely unplayable at this point. He has had an off and on relationship with his quarterback. His star wide receiver can't stand playing in his offense or on his team anymore. I'm out on Nick Seriani. Like, I'm just going to tell you right now, I have zero confidence. I don't care what the record is. I think a lot of the success of this team has been because of other factors. And I can't point to the thing that Nick Seriani does well that he brings to the table here. If someone else can please show it to me tangibly, what it is he brings, I am open to changing my mind, but I don't see it.
I think the branding, I think you're going to get your wish probably after next season, but one thing that's been clear to me this offseason is that they've gone overboard to brand these as Nick Sirianni decisions, from the hiring of Sean Mannion to the firing of Kevin Patul, not even firing, because he's not been fired yet, but demoted for now.
Yep.
Everything's been branded. I get a Chip Kelly feel, John, of when Jeffrey Lurie basically moved Howie Roseman to the other side of the building and said, and I'm paraphrasing, but he gave that convoluted explanation of, well, I have to see what we have in Chip Kelly. I think we're at that stage in Jeffrey Lurie's world with Nick Sirianni. We have to see what we have with Nick Sirianni. And that probably means that he's going to be gone after the season. What I struggle with, to your point, they had the sixth best rushing offense in NFL history 1 year ago. 1 year ago. Why does everybody in Philadelphia think they have to change instead of, and who knows better than the Philadelphia Eagles that Landon Dickerson was banged up, that Cam Jurgens was banged up, that Lane Johnson missed 8 games. This could have gone right back to being probably not the sixth best of all time, but certainly a top 5 rushing offense in the NFL if you stayed status quo. So the complication of that is, well, you can't run the Shanahan scheme, the McVay scheme, if you're running the same running scheme. You have to marry that together. So why is everybody so focused on change versus taking advantage of the brilliance you already have in the building, in this example Jeff Stoutland?
I think because it's a good question. And I think the problem is that if you're running Stoutland's running game, can the passing game that goes with it, and I don't know the answer to this question, can the passing game that you're going to have that you want to try to marry to this offensive rushing attack, and which I guess is kind of in the Shane Steichen mold. I don't know why you couldn't find something similar to what was done in 21 and 22. And maybe that is what they have been running, something that was too similar to that and it just grew stale. But we know that, this is a trendy league, right? And the McVay, the Shanahan tree, all those different those different kind of schemes, they're in vogue right now. And I think part of the other thing with the run game and the run coordination, and one of the reasons why it failed so much in 2025, and we've talked about it a little bit, but it's been kind of lost in this Jeff Stoutland conversation over the last 24 hours, is if Jalen Hurts is not going to run the football, I don't know that you can have the sixth best rushing attack in the NFL at this point. One of the things that made Saquon Barkley and that run game so good in 24 and why it was effective in 23 and in 22 and in 21 to a degree as well was the threat of Jalen Hurts running the football. He refused to do it this year, whether it was in designed runs, whether it was in run pass options, whether it was even just scrambling to get first downs. He didn't want to run. He refused to run this year. And all the talk about, I'm going to do anything I need to do to win, that did not include running the football here in 2025. And so I don't know that we just haven't seen it. I don't know that the Stoutland run game is going to work without Jalen Hurts as the running quarterback to lead it. And if he's set and determined not to run the football, well, now you've got to think totally differently with your passing offense. Now you've got to start going under center more. You've got to start doing more pre-snap motion. You've got to start doing more crossing routes. You've got to make it look different than it was before. And maybe there's a way to marry the Stoutland stuff to the McVay stuff. It doesn't sound as if Sean Mannion and the Eagles believe that what Stoutland was doing was going to work with what Sean Mannion wanted to do. So I agree with you. All things being equal, I would say keep Stoutland, keep the running game, and figure the passing game out. But I'm not 100% sure that the running game works unless Jalen Hurts runs the football as well from the style in which they were trying to run it.
How confident are you in their capability one way or the other, or not confident to run that offense, to do that, without playing the power scheme that they just had?
Yeah, I'm not confident in anything right now with regards to the Eagles offense. I mean, I don't know enough about Sean Mannion to say, he hasn't even had a cup of coffee in the NFL right now. You know what I mean? Like he's had a sip of tea. That's been his experience coaching. And so there's no track record. That was Matt LaFleur's offense in Green Bay a season ago. Now, will he probably do something similar? I would imagine so. And we may have the next genius on our hands. I mean, that is 100% in a possibility here and something for us to consider. This is something that we all said we wanted. Like we wanted change. Yeah, right. And I think change was necessary to some degree. And I think some significant change was necessary. They couldn't keep doing what they were doing. And I kind of likened it to a year and a half ago. My family and I, we moved from one part in our county to another place in the suburbs. And the place we were living before was, more, the houses were closer together. It was more of like a neighborhood where if you're walking your dog, you're going to pass 4 or 5 other people walking their dogs in 20 minutes. And you're saying hello to people. It's just more activity and traffic, but we had less space. We had less movement. There was, it was a little bit more constrictive, but you saw people more and the house wasn't as, it was needed more work, but it was smaller, but anyway, we moved someplace else. We have more space. We're set back from the road. It's a bigger property. It's a bigger house. But there's positives and negatives that go along with that change, right? It's more house to keep track of. It's more expensive to take care of. We don't see our neighbors as much as we used to anymore. There's less of a feeling of a community there. So
sounds like my style of home there, John.
Yeah, I want that one, John. I want that one.
Well, but see, I mean, and I'm happy with the personal change, but there's drawbacks to it. Right? There's things about it that are not as good as the situation we were in before. And so anytime you want change, there's unintended not consequences, but unintended effects of change. And losing Jeff Stoutland is perhaps, it's entirely possible. If he'd stayed on as the run game coordinator all last year, and they hadn't had any of that fallout, the Nick Serriani, Patullo stuff, it's possible he still leaves. when Sean Mannion comes in, if they're going to go with a whole different style of offense
That's a
here.
good point. Yep.
Yeah, I think he would have left, to be
Yeah.
honest. I think it has more to do with that from the standpoint of if we're sort of labeling the issues with the decision. But one thing that came up yesterday I thought was incredibly interesting. The Eagles are also going to pretty clearly move on from quarterbacks coach Scott Leffler after one season and give Jalen Hurts a fifth quarterback coach in 5 seasons. So 2 names came out yesterday. Connor Stanger, who is 30 years old and has been coaching for about as long as Sean Mannion. And then Greg Olson, who is 62 years old and has been employed by 30% of the teams. I looked this up in the NFL. He was, when he started coaching, Stanger had 7 more years to go before he was born. What is going on with these searches? You got experience, and it's pretty clear the Eagles wanted Brian Daboll, Mike McDaniel, and they end up with Sean Mannion. If you go, and you mentioned Josh Grizzard, he was only 35. So you have Sean Mannion, you have Josh Grizzard. Let's say you hire Connor Stanger, who's 30. You have 33, 35, 30. They have, outside of quality control, combined, they have 7 years of coaching at the NFL level. Now, to your point, you might have the most natural, this might be Roy Hobbs of coaching, one of these guys. They might be the natural. They might be just a savant. And I always say innovation is always by definition new, but everything new is not innovative. So you're playing that game. Same thing with experience. Experience doesn't guarantee competency. But boy, I got to tell you, John, for what this team went through last year, and all everybody harped on was how could you give this roster to a first-year play caller? And it worked the way it worked, which was not good. And now they're giving it right back to a first-year play caller with far less experience. That is an interesting decision. How do you unwrap that decision?
They were forced into it. I mean, there were probably, it seems like maybe 2 guys they really wanted, Mike McDaniel and Brian Daboll, and maybe there was another one in there. But they decided, once those guys went someplace else, they decided, well, do we get a retread that we know to be kind of mediocre? Like, a Matt Nagy? Do we go with a Matt Nagy? Who's going to be, I think he's in New York, right? He just went to go with the Giants. I mean, when Monken gets a head coaching job and you can't get him, and some of the other established guys get head coaching jobs and the other ones take head offensive coordinator jobs elsewhere, well, suddenly you're looking at kind of the retread, not so impressive guys. And so the Eagles decided, well, since we couldn't get one of the guys we really wanted on board that have, like we talked about, extensive play calling experience running an offense, they just decided, all right, well, then now let's shoot for upside. And so they brought in a bunch of guys, who they have been told, and by all accounts, people in the Packers organization around the NFL love Sean Mannion. They think he's an up and coming guy. They think he's going to have a great career as an up and coming coach.
Go back to McVay, O'Connell. They all speak glowingly of him.
And so now the Eagles decided, they realized we can't get what we wanted. We can't get what we were hoping to get. So we're going to shoot for upside. We're going to shoot for radical change. We're going to go this route now. But make no mistake, they were forced into this. This was not the plan at the start of the offseason. And the question that I think really gets raised now in light of the fact that they've had to move on to plan B, and maybe this is plan C or whatever letter plan this is, the big key this offseason and in 2026 is, will you get Jalen Hurts' buy-in? Like, will Sean Mannion and this new quarterbacks coach, whoever it is, will they be able to tell hard truths to Jalen Hurts? Will they be able to ignore some of the things that he says that he wants to do if they deem it not good for the team? Will he listen to them and take their advice? And how much rope does he give these young these young coaches before he decides to just do what he wants to do on the field? I mean, I don't know if that happened to some degree with Kevin Patullo this year, or, how much Patullo was able to direct Jalen Hurts and really mold Jalen Hurts, if this was more the Jalen Hurts offense or the Patullo offense or the Serriani offense or some combination. But one of the arguments to be made for bringing in an established guy was that it would be somebody that Jalen Hurts would have to listen to.
Right.
And
have they earned, I
here.
think your question's fair. Have they earned the ear of Jalen Hurts?
Yeah.
And as far as I'm concerned, Jalen Hurts has accomplished more than these two put together.
Correct. And I think so then you wonder, like, well, how much say will Jalen Hurts have in what this offense looks like? Because we've heard all the reporting about his preferences and what he does want to do and what he doesn't want to do. He doesn't want to run the football. We know that. So,
well, they got to fix that, John. They got to fix that.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, listen, he's getting into his upper 20s now. I think he should be continuing to run, but you can't. It's like when Donovan McNabb was aging, right? And as his career went along, he didn't want to run anymore. So if you cannot force the quarterback to run, it's his choice to run. You can call the play, and if he changes it at the line of scrimmage to something else, there's nothing you can do about it. So if the quarterback has decided, I'm not running, then you've got to get an offense together that he can run without him running the football. But now, if he's not going to run, then he needs to meet you halfway too and say, okay, then maybe I need to start doing things in the passing game that I haven't traditionally been comfortable with, but now I really need to start making sure that I'm working on those different kinds of things. And it's also going to be incumbent on Nick Sirianni to say, it's not all about avoiding turnovers. If that's the only goal we have, the offense is still going to look like garbage because you're so scared of making a mistake. And you can't let your quarterback play that way either.
All right, let me play devil's advocate here. All right, and this is not necessarily what I believe, but I got to ask it.
Yeah.
Is there a chance that we're all wrong? Nick Sirianni is actually right. I mean, we all have this desire for this new offense, right? Oh, it doesn't look good. We could be the Dallas Cowboys, throw for 4,900 yards, have an MVP quarterback, the prolific passing offense, and you don't even sniff the playoffs. I mean, is there a chance that Nick, while it might look ugly, actually figured out how to play offense in a way that allows them to win at the level they've won at? Now, I'm not going to dismiss the two bad years where it looked as bad as it did and it collapsed the way it did, but don't we have to at least ask that question? Is there a chance that Nick is right and the desires for a different offense are not well-founded?
I would say that there's a chance that argument is correct as long as the quarterback runs the football. And I keep coming back to that because it was such an integral part of how the Eagles were able to do what Nick Sirianni wanted to do, right? Avoiding turnovers. Well, if you don't want your quarterback to make an at-risk throw on 2nd and long or 3rd and long, he can tuck it and run and get you a first down that way. How many times have we seen Hurts do that over the years? How many times did we see that in 2025? Can you count maybe on one hand the number of times Jalen Hurts on a 2nd and long or a 3rd and long broke a run that got him a first down? That wasn't overturned by a penalty, right? Every time it happened this year, we're like, whoa, where did that come from? Where has that been? And so you're right. I think Nick Sirianni's right in that avoiding turnovers is extremely important. But I also think Nick Sirianni understands that the league may have caught up to him. And also the skill, but we haven't talked about the players at all. A.J. Brown didn't play well this year. He's been such an important part of what they do. He didn't play well. He was not mentally into the season really from the start, and his performance showed it. He wasn't winning one-on-one battles. He was maybe physical in like 2 or 3 games this year where you can look back, you're like, man, A.J. Brown was a monster in that game. There were no other, he got out in the second half of the year. Do you remember him winning a single one-on-one ball deep down the field? Like that's part of that's part of this team's bread and butter. And A.J. Brown, it wasn't just in the playoff game. It was over the last 6-7 weeks of the season, wasn't winning a single one-on-one when he had one. And so you have that. And then you have the banged up offensive line. And, I think Sirianni is right in avoiding turnovers, but you have also got to be flexible. You've got to be malleable. You've got to be able to say, listen, this isn't working. This philosophy isn't working. We need to open it up. And there were no easy buttons for this offense outside of, hey, AJ, go win a one-on-one. And when that wasn't happening, they were stuck.
All those variables still won 11 games, John.
It's amazing. You used that term, and I was kind of thinking to myself, Zander, when you asked that question. I'm not picking on you, but you said I'm not dismissing the 2 bad seasons. I love in Philadelphia we've gotten to the point where double-digit wins are bad seasons. I mean, it's not bad to have expectations. I say all the time, but that's where we are, and that's part of the problem because of the expectations are so high. Yeah. And that's something you have to live with, and it's better to have those expectations than to be a 5-win team and have no expectations and try to rebuild the whole thing. But, at bleedinggreennation.com, you wrote a piece about Jalen Hurts a little while ago, back in January, having a nuanced conversation. Hey, boy, I love it that you try to have the conversation. I try to have the conversation all the time. You've mentioned it a couple times here. I mean, if he's not going to run the football, I think you got to start looking at a different direction. I think we're at that point. And it's not, but I don't think I think you just have to convince him, look, this is part of what makes you unique. I never liked the Donovan McNabb comparisons simply because of this. Donovan stopped running. It was a different time. It was a different generation. Dual threat quarterbacks were looked down upon. I'm not saying those people don't exist because there's always a few knuckleheads, but now it's accepted. You're a dual threat. That's great. You're right. Josh Allen. It's great.
Donovan also had a different skill set, but and
Jalen's much better. But like I think the people trying to turn him into Brock Purdy are not going to be happy. And for the life of me, John, it mystifies me why it can't be just utilized, Jalen Hurts, the way he plays the game for as long as the shelf life is. Like, that's the goal to me. Yeah. Take advantage of this unique player who was won at such a high level. I don't want to turn him into a Kyle Shanahan quarterback. I don't.
But I guess if he's not going to run, what's the alternative?
I have to get him to run. The alternative to that, if I can't get him to run, if I can't get him to be the +1 in the running game again, then I got to start thinking about a succession plan.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, sure.
And build around a quarterback that fits into the Shanahan type of system. But that's easier said than done. It's not easy to find quarterbacks. Do you think, are you in the category that Jalen Hurts can play the Kyle Shanahan system and there's no problem with it? Or do you think there is a problem with that mindset?
I'm in the camp of I have no idea. And I think I've seen enough from Jalen Hurts over the years that he's worked really hard to improve. He is light years from where he was in 2021 as a quarterback.
100%.
And I
think people dismiss that, and they haven't seen the evolution. I think it's been significant.
It has.
He made substantial strides, even from 2021 to 2022, that year they went to the Super Bowl, where he looked like a completely different quarterback. I believe I've seen him make the throws over the middle in tight windows when he's had to, when he's been forced to. I've seen him do it. I've seen him make all of the throws. He has a strong enough arm to make all the throws. It's not the strongest arm in the NFL. It might not even be top 15% strongest arm, but it is strong enough to make all the throws. He really struggles with getting the ball out on time, throwing to space. And like you said, that's Brock Purdy's game. That's what he does. And the Shanahan offense is kind of designed around doing that. But he's never been asked to do that before. He's been asked to wait for his guys to win one-on-ones and hit them. And to buy time in the pocket with his legs and scramble when he needs to. That's what he's been asked to do. He's never been asked to run a complicated timing offense before. I don't know if he can do it. It might be like trying to ask Randall Cunningham to run the John Gruden offense when Ray Rhodes took over in 95. It may not work. And then you're right. You may need to have a succession plan in place, whether that's Tanner McKee. And I don't think necessarily that would be the case because McKee's going to be a free agent after this year. Maybe you see them draft somebody in the 4th or 5th round this year to kind of groom as a possibility for the future. I want to see if Jalen Hurts can do these things because I know he's won a Super Bowl. I know he's been to 2 Super Bowls and been the best player on the field in both of those games. I have seen him do what we have asked every other Eagles quarterback in franchise history to try and do and have failed to do, right? He is what Randall Cunningham couldn't be. Donovan McNabb couldn't be. Michael Vick couldn't be. All these different guys, Nick Foles was, clearly an outlier, and you'll never see that again maybe in the NFL. But Jalen Hurts did those things. He didn't just get to a Super Bowl and then lose one. He got back to it 2 years later and then won the thing. And so I think Jalen Hurts has earned the right to have another year, at least one more year, if not 2 more full years, to try and make a go of a new offensive system. And then after that, I think I think in the meantime, you're starting to think about possibilities of, hey, what if this doesn't work out? What are we looking for in a quarterback to run this type of a system? Right. You might see the Eagles go in that direction after a certain amount of time, but man, I have been critical of Jalen Hurts. I don't like what he did this year. I think he left a lot of meat on the bone. The running just frankly befuddles me, but I also recognize the fact that he is the one we were promised all those different quarterbacks ago. And I still see a player who's got a lot left in the tank physically, and he's a guy who's improved from year to year. So I'm curious and kind of excited to see what he might be able to do in an offense where maybe guys are schemed up. Maybe there's more easy buttons where he has, where he has easier fixes when there's blitzes and everything else like that.
I think that's a great point. John, I want you to be as you always are. You're such a great interview right now. As honest as you possibly can. Is the championship window, is the Super Bowl window closing faster than anyone wants to admit?
I think yes, I'll say that it's closing faster than anybody wanted, but I wouldn't necessarily say that I think it's closed or even closing this year. Because I do think we'll probably see a healthier Cam Jurgens and Landon Dickerson in 2026, and I think that'll make a big difference. I think a big question with Jeff Stoutland leaving is, does Lane Johnson come back? Or does he just decide to retire and hang him up? I mean, those guys were unbelievably close. And so I could very easily see Lane Johnson saying, you know what, new system, Stoutland's gone, everything else going on in this building, no AJ, and it sure seems like AJ is going to leave. I'm done. I'm good. That would be a major issue for this offense and would certainly hurt the Super Bowl window. But I think there's still a ton of talent on this team. I look at the defense and I see, even if Vic Fangio were to leave the year after next, there's so much young talent on the defense that's going to be here for a long time. The window stays open if you can play good defense. And I think we've seen teams, maybe they take a step back for a year, and maybe that means a 9-8 season for the Eagles this year, an 8-9 season, and then jump back right into the forefront. I mean, who thought the Seahawks were going to put together one of the greatest seasons in NFL history? And
look at those Super Bowl teams. Who had New England? Yeah. Even it was one of the worst teams in football. Most people thought coming into the season.
Yeah,
and they're
so I don't really believe in windows in the NFL, right? I think they're more in baseball and in other sports. The NFL, you can turn your roster around so fast, and the Eagles are so good with the cap, and they draft so well that I really don't think the window is going to close entirely. And you still have a good quarterback, a very good quarterback. As long as you have a very good quarterback, a GM who knows what he's doing, an owner who knows what he's doing, and a solid defense, I think the window stays open. But we're clearly not talking dynasty here. There clearly are issues. The floor is much lower now than I think we anticipated it being a year ago when this team was getting ready to dominate the Chiefs in the Super Bowl.
Real quick, John, if I could just follow up.
Yeah.
What move then would you make to restore confidence for the direction of the team then this year? What's the one move or the two moves or whatever you think?
Well, I think you got to show me that if you lose AJ Brown, you still bring in a top wide receiver to play on this team, or you spend your first round pick on an elite wide receiver that can play right away. And then I think you probably need to talk in terms of players. I think you need to figure out, get an edge rusher in here that can make a big difference. And maybe that's re-signing Jalen Phillips. I'm uncomfortable with the price tag of a Max Crosby, bringing him in, but he certainly would make you feel much better about your defense. I just don't think they can afford him and then pay all the young guys that they need to pay. But I think, you re-sign Jalen Phillips and you bring in a number one wide receiver to replace AJ Brown. I think you can get right back to being an elite team again. Are those moves possible? I don't know.
At John Stoleness, make sure you follow John on the X platform. Read him at bleedinggreennation.com. His hitting season's coming up. The Philadelphia Phillies back. Make sure you follow his Phillies coverage as well as podcast there. We haven't talked about Vic. Vic, there was a little scare with Vic as well. We've all known. I mean, Vic was after the Super Bowl. After they won the Super Bowl, he was thinking about retiring. The Eagles always knew it was going to be a short shelf life with Vic Fangio. They get a third year, it seems. They'll take that. I think he's the best defensive mind in the game. But when you know this might be his last go around, how does that change your thinking when you talk about building that defense? And like Jalen Phillips is a Vic Fangio guy. For Vic Fangio, he's played his best football. Maybe Vic's not here next year. How does that affect a big contract? He loves Nakobe Dean, but he might not be here next year. So how much impact do you think that has on Howie Roseman? Or do you think it's just, hey, we got to build the roster with the best players because we know there's going to be turnover quickly at defensive coordinator?
Yeah, I mean, I think you still have to. I still think you still have to do everything you can to sign the young guys to long-term contracts, even if Vic Fangio's not here, because I think you're going to continue to play that style of defense. You're not going to radically change the defensive style. And this team, I know, has not done a good job of developing coaches to take on large roles. I mean, we saw that with Brian Johnson. We saw that with Kevin Patullo. We saw that with, they didn't develop Sean Desai, but the young guy they bring in. What Vic Fangio needs to start doing, and maybe he's already done it to some degree, is looking for somebody on this coaching staff. And maybe it's Clint Hurt, the defensive line coach, to come on and really start for there to be a succession plan in place. Because I think going outside and bringing like Jonathan Gannon back or Jim Schwartz back or something, that does nothing for me. But maybe I would trust Vic to mentor one of these young position coaches to eventually take over the reins. And you have access to Vic Fangio like every single day. So Vic can explain to you, like, here's what I'm looking at. Here's how we're going to change things up. I mean, I'm sure he doesn't do that in isolation. I think if you're asking Vic Fangio to groom his replacement, I would hope that you would, with all the talent that they're going to have on defense, that would be enough in order for you to continue to have a really good defense. I'm really hoping that Quinyon Mitchell, Cooper DeJean, Jalen Carter, Jordan Davis, whoever else it is, Zach Bond, Jahad Campbell, all these guys, that they're not only a product of Vic Fangio. Maybe they are. And if that's the case, then we're all in a lot of trouble. But these seem to be really talented players.
No, they're good players.
Works for them.
Even Vic will tell you they're good players.
I agree. So,
all right, John, final question for you real quick. I'm going to go the proverbial gun to the head question. Is Nick Sirianni the head coach in week 1 of 2027? Or forget week 1 of 2027. 365 days from now on February 5th of 2027, is Nick Sirianni the head coach?
I think he is. And I'm not thrilled to say that, but I don't think we're going to, I don't think that we're going to see a disaster of a season for the Eagles here. I think it could be a situation. I'll say I'm intrigued by the Sean Mannion hiring. I think it could work. I think there's so much talent on this team that it really should work. Again, I don't know what's going to happen with AJ Brown, so maybe that's a problem. If the offense looks the same, and like, let's say they start doing things differently, and then we start to see more of the hitch routes, and you start to see all the different stuff that drove us crazy this year, and the offense struggles, yes, Nick's gone. And if there's a lot of turmoil, Nick's gone. But I just, I don't know. I think there's been too much success for them to fire Nick. And I don't even really like Nick Sirianni as a head coach. I think if you're looking at the list of people who have been responsible for this run, Nick's not at the top, and he's probably like 4th, 5th, 6th in my opinion. But I don't think he's gone a year from now. I really don't.
We'll see. John Stoleness, thanks for joining us today, brother. It's always great catching up with you. We do appreciate your time. As always, go enjoy that nice property you got, John, with the extra space.
Don't make it sound like I'm living on a compound here, guys. That's not what I was saying.
John, I'm just interested where I can walk the dog with and don't have to say hi to 4 or 5 people.
Yeah, that's nice. That's nice. I'm not going to lie to you.
Yeah.
John, thank you, brother. We'll talk to you soon. All right, brother.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks, bud.
John Stoleness joining us right here on Birds 365. Awesome interview there with John Stoleness. Appreciate him joining in today. Thought he brought some really interesting points to the conversation. And John, as we wrap up with John Stoleness, we do have a little bit of breaking news in Eagle Land. Did you happen to see it, John? The Eagles have made a hiring under Sean Mannion. They have brought in Ryan Mahaffey, who was an ascending coach with the Packers, another ascending coach, pinch me if you've heard that before, as run game coordinator and tight ends coach, which could spell the end of Jason Michael in Philadelphia.
Wow, we're getting really deep changes on the offensive staff.
I said it last night, John. The biggest overhaul since the Chip Kelly era is what I see.
Yeah. And it's pretty evident you're going to get a new quarterbacks coach. So at this stage, and obviously you need a new offensive line coach. So I don't think Aaron Moorhead's going to be back. I think they're blowing out the whole staff.
Gone. Done. Patullo, Moore, every one of them seems like they're going to be gone.
Yeah. Okay. All right. I don't like it, but I think there's a lot of good coaches there. Maybe I'm biased from that standpoint, but he was one of the guys because I was looking at the young coaches on the Packers staff because those are the most notable that could potentially come over, and he was one of the ones I looked at and mentioned. And we'll see. I mean, I believe he coached wide receivers. And now
I'm trying to see what he did. I mean, was he the tight ends coach there? Because he's going to be the tight ends coach here. Tucker Kraft was a damn good tight end. I don't know if he was the tight end.
No, I think he was a wide receiver. I have to look it up though.
He's a former fullback, I believe, John.
Yeah. Well, there's a lot of guys, and there's a lot of guys who do different things. As you get into coaching, and I always think that's a good thing to have experience doing different roles because you become a more well-rounded coach. I think there's something to that.
Yeah. 38 years old.
Well, yeah.
You're right. Wide receivers coach for the Green Bay Packers.
Yeah. So that's interesting. And now he's the run game coordinator. But as you said, he's a fullback, so obviously he has from his playing career. But if we look at it, I just pulled him up. So he's been at college. He's been a tight ends coach. He's been an OC at Northern Iowa, and then he jumped to the Packers pretty quickly. And he was quality control, assistant offensive line, and then wide receivers. So really diverse background.
Very diverse.
Think about that.
Former fullback, wide receivers, tight ends, everybody. Yeah.
So quite a diverse background. This to me is simply that Sean Mannion just thinks he's a good coach and likes him.
Yeah, right.
But again, and now we talk about run game coordinator. Look who the run game coordinator was. And now, but people overblow that title. Like I said, this will be Sean Mannion doing most of the heavy lifting when it comes to deciding what the run game's going to be. Yeah, interesting to say the least. But
yeah. Well, there's a 38. All right, you got a 35-year-old pass game coordinator, 38-year-old run game coordinator, 33-year-old offensive coordinator. Boy, man, John, you always say it. Young can be innovative, but innovative isn't always good. It's going to be interesting to see what.
Well, no, it's everything innovative by definition is
right.
New, but not everything new is innovative. So youth does not guarantee innovation, because as I always say, I've been using a lot of business examples, analogies today. If you use the business analogy, for every good idea, there's about 1,000 bad ideas.
Yep.
Probably more.
And all the best CEOs will tell you exactly that.
Yeah, probably more. So, yeah, it's by definition, innovation is by definition, as I said, new, but everything new is not innovative.
John, real quick, he was the wide receivers coach in Green Bay. Does this mean Aaron Moorhead's staying, do you think?
Well, I don't, obviously he's not the wide receivers coach here, so it doesn't affect Aaron, but if you think at a,
well, that's what I mean. That's what I'm asking though. Is that why he's not the wide receivers coach? Because they're keeping Moorhead.
Yeah. I wouldn't say that guaranteed. I haven't talked to anybody since this, so I can't talk about it certainty, but I've just from the way it's going, they're interviewing quarterbacks coaches. Obviously they have to get a new offensive line coach. They've gotten a new tight ends coach. Jason Michael's been here for the entirety of the Nick Sirianni era. So that leaves basically Moorhead and Jamal Singleton, the running backs coach. Now, there's supposed to be a blend of new and old. So yeah, if you're keeping somebody, it would have to be Jamal or Aaron or both. So, we'll see, basically, is where we are with that.
Now, I know this doesn't solve the offensive line coach, but is this the replacement for Stoutland and the run game coordinator, technically, right?
Well, he is the run game coordinator.
Yeah, I don't know. Sometimes they have multiple of them, and where they have a bunch, I don't know.
Again, people pay way too much attention to that title, which I've been trying to say. But look, in theory, he's the run game coordinator. What that means is he'll be responsible. Again, I use the business analogy, run game concepts at the behest of what Sean Mannion wants, kick it up the chain of command. And that's all it is. And I think people will be more accepting of that because this is an inexperienced coach. That's all it is. It's not Sean Mannion's going to be in charge of the offense. And certainly Nick Sirianni will be involved, but that's how it works, and that's how it will continue to work. But interesting. I thought Jason Michael would be one of the guys who might be back, and obviously he's not going to be back.
Looks like an entire.
And that, by the way, he and Dallas Goedert are very close. So you talk about another foot out the door for Dallas Goedert.
Right.
That is another foot out the door for Dallas Goedert.
Yeah, Dallas Goedert's probably going. We will see, man. A lot of big turnover here. John, we got some super chats we'll read today. I want to thank everybody for being here. Don't forget to hit that like button. A big show today after the departure of Jeff Stoutland. Now we get some news. Ryan Mahaffey is coming in from the Green Bay Packers, young 38-year-old former fullback in the NFL, coach wide receivers in Green Bay, and has a litany of history, as John just laid out, at coaching. So he is now the run game coordinator and tight ends coach in Philadelphia. John, let's go to our super chats. Him Bison, what's up, brother? Are we going to ignore that Shanahan and McVay and their disciples get the quarterbacks hurt, or am I out of school on this?
Yeah, I don't think there's any discernible evidence that they get quarterbacks more hurt than anybody else. But so, yeah, I think you're a little out of school. But, if you're talking about Brock Purdy in the NFC Championship game, that's on Brock Purdy. They've been running that concept for years. He knows there's an unblocked defender.
There would be some nuance, though, where certain styles can get quarterbacks hurt, right?
Yeah, ball's got to come out. I mean, that's one of the things. I mean, if you're going to have that concept in your offense, the ball's got to come out.
Yeah, Jalen's got to get that ball out this year, man.
Yeah. So, no, but I don't think there's any statistical merit to that. Other than everybody gets hurt in this game eventually.
Yeah, right. Is that the Zach Ertz old quote?
Yeah.
On a long enough timeline, the probabilities are at 100. Here's Alfredo. What's up, Alfredo? CD just said to K, wide receivers get demoralized not getting the ball for 2 quarters. How many times did that happen to AJ this season? Yeah, a lot, as you alluded to.
Well, yeah, receivers want the football. I don't know why that upsets everyone. I mean, you don't want a receiver who doesn't want the football. That's the last guy you want.
Yeah, right.
And big-time receivers want the football. That's one thing they all have in common. Can you handle it better when you don't get the football? Yes. Some guys handle it better. But I've never met a great receiver that doesn't want the football. It doesn't even compute to me. It's one of the obvious things of life. It's like, yeah, they want it. It's like a scorer in the NBA saying he wants to score. Oh yeah, duh.
Yeah, right. Here's Urine Nicholas. What's up, man? Appreciate you for being here. I'm not sure if you're new to the channel. Never seen the name. Could Jalen Hurts not running be because he doesn't get any calls when he gets wrapped up, and they hated because I think he means hated there. They aided because he's a running quarterback?
No, I don't. I think you're way too conspiratorial there. The problem with Jalen, he doesn't get there are calls that he doesn't get that other quarterbacks do get, and that's related to his power and strength, and he doesn't look like he gets manhandled. Half of the battle is looking like you got manhandled, and he never looks like it. So that's part of his skill set, unfortunately. And yeah, he's not going to get some calls that other guys get. But I don't think I don't think it has any impact on his willingness to run.
Here's Papa Smurf. What's up, Papa Smurf? Like that name. They can't scale back to the old offense because of all the skilled position players have declined, including QB1. John, your thoughts?
Well, if they're declining, then you're fucked with a new offense as well. So if that's the case, I mean, that's the case, and people do decline. And if that's, if everybody's declining at the same time, then you got to retool the personnel. And that'll start this year to a certain degree. But if they're declining, you got issues. You're not going to. I don't know what people think, and I don't know where it comes from, but you don't scheme up bad offenses to be good. If you don't have good talent, you're not scheming up anything.
Here's Bearded Willie. What's up, Bearded Willie? Just like if Vic left and we got Schwartz, we don't have the defensive personnel. Same with our O-line. Our O-line and quarterback don't fit this new plan.
Yeah, I agree with that. I said the same thing when Jim's name came out. I said it doesn't make sense for where the Eagles are personnel-wise to shift to, the Fangio scheme back to Jim Schwartz from, occasionally you have certain guys. Jalen Carter would fit brilliantly. But for the most part, most of the guys would not be as good a fits. Same thing on offense. Like, why do you Landon Dickerson's my best example on offense, pure power player, maybe the strongest guard in the league when he's right. And you want to turn him into a Denver Broncos, Mike Shanahan pulling outside stretch. It doesn't make sense to me. But we'll see. I don't think the finished product will end up that way because one thing all good coaches have in common is they ultimately revert to the strengths of the players they have. And if Sean Mannion's as good as everybody says, he will do the same thing. I'm very confident in saying that.
One more super chat here. Pumper says, let me find out. We got dudes in here buck dancing for the Eagles. Who are the bootlickers? Send them dudes to the nether realm. Pumper always has an ability to sensationalize.
Yeah, Pumper. I don't even know what to say to that one.
Me neither.
I hope Pumper doesn't spend a lot of time writing material, though. I hope he doesn't spend a lot of time.
I think he's a creative writer, if whatever that means. All right, John. I got a question for you here, but I know we're overtime here, a little bit of overtime. But you got the breaking news from Ryan Mahaffey. Should I buy it, John? Should I believe the hype? Should I buy in that the concepts and the offense and everything?
Concepts. I love the concepts.
That's why I said it.
I love the concepts.
Should I buy it, McMullen?
Well, I love the Kyle Shanahan concept, so I'm with you. Do I think the Eagles should be going in that direction? No, I don't. And ultimately, I don't think they will, but I think they're trying. And there's nothing wrong with trying. There's nothing wrong with talking about this kind of stuff on February 5th. Nothing wrong with it. Nobody's playing. Nobody's practicing. Nobody's doing anything. Draw up in your mind everything you want to draw up. I want to do this. I want to do that. I want to do this. I want to do that. But when you get the players on the field, I want to have coaches who take advantage of what they do well. We're going to have a bunch of young coaches, added another one today, Ryan Mahaffey, Sean Mannion, Josh Grizzard. Hey, give them all an opportunity. But if they're not taking advantage of what their players do well, that's when I'll start criticizing them. But I'll give them all a chance.
We'll see what they do. John, it's a big one. It's a big final thought from you today on the heels of Jeff Stoutland walking away from the Eagles, signaling massive change in the organization, John, and for the offense. The much anticipated final thought from you, John McMullen, today.
Well, I didn't think we'd get a new run game coordinator this quickly.
Yeah, and it's like they didn't even. It's like they moved on from the rat. It's like the guy who's got a new girl under his arm in 8 hours. Yeah.
An interesting tight ends coach, as I mentioned, wide receivers coach, even an offensive coordinator in college at Northern Iowa, assistant offensive line coach for 2 seasons in Green Bay, wide receivers coach, as you mentioned, and now he's the run game coordinator of the Philadelphia Eagles, replacing Jeff Stoutland. Ryan Mahaffey, I am looking forward to meeting you, and if you're listening for some odd reason, good luck, because
that's why they make tight end too, because it can be as a little off ramp,
You can you got quite the standard to live up to.
No doubt. Johnny Mac, great show today. We'll see what happens, John.
Yeah. Coming fast and furious. As I said, you're likely to have another quarterbacks coach as well. It seems they're going that direction. So that would leave Singleton and Moorhead as potentially coming back.
I think Moorhead's going. We'll see about Singleton.
Yeah. So
here's one more super chat just came in. YG FTU, whatever it is. Thank you for the super chat. Wait, it just hit me. With the potential changes scheme, do you believe the Eagles will be drafting a quarterback high in the upcoming draft? Final super chat of the day.
Yeah, it wouldn't shock me. Day 2, it wouldn't shock me. It would shock me in the first. They're not taking a quarterback. Hey, it's not a great quarterback.
Day 2 would shock me pretty good. Round 2 or 3.
Yeah, it wouldn't shock me.
Especially with the history and what that round has meant, what Jalen Hurts was drafted. So I think that would shock me, but we'll see.
Certainly not in the first round, but I don't think it's a great quarterback draft. I think somebody who's I looked at Garrett Nussmeier, talked about him. A lot of Garrett Nussmeier talk today. There was some talk, but he's playing well now, and he's going to get pumped up the board. He's going to be a first-round pick in a bid, I think, because that's what happens.
Might be right.
I think that's what happens with quarterbacks. So unless there's that value, I don't see it. But yeah, if you want to go down this route, I said if you want to go down this route and you're being really honest with yourself, and I'm going to be really honest with the people, which doesn't work, you got to start thinking about a succession plan at quarterback, because this quarterback's not going to fit what they want to run on offense. Period. Not going to happen.
We'll see how it fans out next year. Johnny Mac, great show today, brother. Appreciate it. And I will talk to you tomorrow on a Football Friday. Maybe they'll break some more news today. We'll see.
All right. Thanks, all.
All right. Thanks, John. There's Johnny Mac, John McMullen joining us right here on Birds 365. Great show today. A lot of good topics, a lot of good conversation after the departure of Jeff Stoutland. I thought John Stoleness, our guest today, was excellent. All right. I'm a big John Stoleness fan. I always have been. I think he's got a good way of explaining things and explaining his position. All right, good opportunity, good, an interesting day, guys. It's a very interesting day in Eagle Land. When a coach as as revered as Jeff Stoutland is leaves your organization, not because he was fired, not because he was retiring, because he was done with it. He was done. He got demoted basically as successful as he's been, basically in favor of a lot less proven guys. Prince, I knew you'd like him, Prince, and slowly moving that way, Prince. So we'll see what happens, man. I think that I honestly, guys, my belief is that this is worse than people think. And I'm not saying Jeff Stoutland is out there winning the games for you, but when you look at the way the Eagles have been so successful, it's the offensive line. It's the run game. Like this is predating Jalen Hurts. This is the last decade of Eagles success. Offensive line, good running game year in and year out. Doesn't matter if Miles Sanders, DeAndre Swift, or Saquon Barkley's here. Like it just feels like this is such a big nail in the coffin for how the Eagles have won games. Now, that's not to say that they can't reinvent it. It's not to say that they can't reinvent themselves. It's not to say that they can't come back and find a new method for winning. There's not one way to do it. But I just look at the Eagles and what's made them such a good organization in the last decade. Man, Jeff Stoutland was a big part of it, man. He was a big part of it, and we're going to find out. We will find out. On the hiring of Ryan Mahaffey, now I don't know much about him, but I kind of like that hire. I kind of like that. I mean, seems like a guy that, wide receivers coach in Green Bay. Shit, man, that was a group where they had so many receivers. They had guys go down and you didn't even know who was down because they made it all work. They spread the ball around to 5 different receivers, 5-6 different receivers. So I don't mind the hiring of Ryan Mahaffey. We'll see how he does here in Philly. All right, former fullback in the NFL. Here's Pumper. What's up, Pump? I'll get to all super chats that we missed. Pumper says, we need Jalen Hurts to learn how to turn left. Only the green steel Hurts can save us. Or just hand the keys to Tanner. Sorry, Pump. Brutal read. I botched it, bro. I'll read it one more time, all right, to make up for it. We need Jalen Hurts to learn how to turn left. Only green steel Hurts can save us. Or just hand the keys to Tanner. Sounds like a Pumper super chat if I've ever heard one. Here's a Fredo. Keep Jamel, get Moorhead out of here. ASAP. I'm good with that. Leon, John, I'm so sad, man. Why does it feel like a reset? Leon, cheer up. It's just football, Leon. It's just a bunch of dudes running around in fucking tights around a patch of grass. They don't pay your bills. All right? They don't feed your family. All right? They don't give you a relationship. They don't fix any of the things in your life, Leon. Cheer up, pal. Cheer up. But I understand your frustration. I feel it as well. Here's Brian Fleming. Thank you, Flynn. The staff augmentation should not be limited to just coaches. Replace Bob Lang with Brian Pumper. Clean house everywhere. We'd have an unhinged group. All right. Pretty good. Pretty good. Here's Roll. What's up, Roll? Appreciate you being here, brother. Z, maybe I'm victim of the moment, but it feels like Nick is rotting this bill. Yeah, Roll, I can't say you. Roll, I'm not going to lie to you, dude. I've been a Nick defender in many ways. Not that I think he's perfect, but I've defended him because of how much success they've had. I'm getting that feeling too, dude. Now, my question, Roll, is this. Is it Nick or is it upstairs? That's my question. Because I know, people love to give Howie and Jeffrey all their flowers, and they're good. They deserve a lot of them. But something tells me that if Nick Serriani truly had full autonomy, Jeff Stoutland would still be here. That's just my feeling. Like if Nick Sirianni, like a lot of most head coaches have full say. Nick doesn't in Philly. It's just the setup in Philly. Doug got fired for wanting a say on this coordinator. Remember this. This is how we were built. It does feel to me like if Nick really had all the say that he wanted or that he would have, he wouldn't change the scheme this much. That's just what it feels like to me. It doesn't mean I'm right. It does not mean I'm right. But that's what it feels like to me. You know, a lot of fans, me included, again, guilty as charged. I'm not, when I say fans, I don't remove myself from the conversation. A lot of fans, you know, clamor to get Nick out, right? Or to get him out of the offense. When he calls plays, things are about whatever. You know, you hear that a lot. Maybe he did now. Maybe he did now, and this is what we get. You know, we have Jeff Stoutland gone, new run game, new coordinator, new everything. New everything. We will see, brother. Let's go to tea time. Tea time. What's up, my friend? Hope you're doing well this morning. I've been saying all season, I'm tired of hearing Jalen can't run this type of offense. Man, let's run it. And if it fails, we can move on. If we succeed, then I want certain people eating crow. Tea time, I think that's a good take. And I think I'll be due a plate of crow, you know, if they do succeed. Here's Angelo. What's up, Angelo? Zander, my uncle said the same thing to me. The Eagles don't put no money in your pocket. Enjoy it for entertainment. Facts. They put money in my pocket because it's my business. Christopher Michael, Z, does this not show that the front office is letting Mannion hire who he wants? Nick truly has been kneecapped. Yeah, and Christopher, that's why I just said what I said. It's either going to be a good thing or it's not. Because I honestly believe if Nick Serriani was allowed to do what he wanted, I don't think Jeff Stoutland would be gone right now. I really don't. That's just my honest belief. Doesn't mean I think Nick is great. Doesn't mean I think Nick doesn't deserve any blame. That's not what I'm saying at all. I'm saying simply, if it were left in Nick's hands to fix, he would not have changed the philosophy to this extent. I mean, guys, this is a full new. This is a full new offensive philosophy. And by the way, I got one other rip for Nick Sirianni this morning. All right. And I've been a pretty staunch defender of Nick in moments, as Prince will tell you. Prince, appreciate you. I got one rip on Sirianni right now that totally rubs me the wrong way. Did he sell out his entire fucking staff? Did he sell out his entire fucking staff? Now, maybe that's what he's got to do to keep his job in Philly, as you saw with Doug Peterson. I mean, Kevin Patullo got fired. I remember when Brian Johnson got fired a couple years ago. Flamed him out there. Jeff Stoutland. See you, Jeff Stoutland. Jason Michael gone. Everybody's gone. Nick is still here. I don't know. I mean, like I don't want to overstate it. I'm just saying it rubs me the wrong way. You know, he sold out everybody on the staff so that he can remain and bring in this new scheme. You know, I don't know, man. We'll see. I don't know. We'll see, man. It's interesting. I think this whole thing is honestly interesting. Someone's just revving out there. Pretty cold day. I don't know what you're revving for, but Jose Play says, why is Nick still there? He's the head coach of the team, and they kept him in. That Deshay, that bum Moorhead is still here. I'm not a big Moorhead guy either. Here's John. Jalen getting everyone fired. Uh-oh. There's always those people that think everything's about Jalen. Hey, listen, Jalen's been put in a situation now, John, where he's going to sink or swim. All right? Just like that, a Cilio narrative. What do you mean a Cilio narrative? It's a fair question, Reyes. I mean, I know you like to – well, Reyes, I love you, but you do willingly say that you choose to live in delusion land. You'd prefer to live – and I respect that. That's fine. You could choose to live your life that way, be an eternal optimist. I have no problem with that. That's not my style, but I appreciate it's your style. It does still look like that for Nick. I mean, you can be an eternal optimist and still acknowledge, hey, when the offense went bad this year, Nick Sirianni stayed and his entire staff got purged. You know, I mean, here's Aldemar here or whatever. How do you say that? I appreciate this comment, actually. He says, why are we upset about the changes? The offense was pathetic. We are not insane. Yeah, the offense was pathetic, but they won a lot, dude. You know whose offense wasn't pathetic? And I'm not pushing back on you. I'm just trying to answer the question or at least give my perspective on it. And part of me agrees to some extent with what you're saying. But is it brighter on the other side? Like the offense was pathetic. And what happened? The offense hasn't been all that great for the last couple of years. And it was great in 24 because of the run game, but the pass game was mediocre at best, maybe below average. You know who didn't have a bad offense? You know whose offense wasn't pathetic? The Dallas Cowboys. Where'd they end up this year? Is that a perfect way to look at it? Is this the classic thing that John's been saying? Be careful what you wish for. We all want a better offense. I agree with you. I wanted a better. How many times did you fucking listen to this show, me bitching about the offense this year? I bitched about it till I was blue in the face. But Cowboys are the best offense in the league. They didn't even make the playoffs, man. They didn't even make the fucking playoffs, brother. They had 3 number 1 offenses in the last 6 years. They don't have shit to show for it. They got 2 playoff wins in 10 years. How many number 1 offenses has Dak Prescott had? I don't know. And I'm not saying it's a perfect comp. I'm just saying I do wonder if, perhaps we've fallen for the wrong things. And maybe we all need to adopt a little bit of the Hurts mantra. Winning is the only thing that matters. I get it. They didn't win to the level, but, who knows? We'll see what happens, bro. We'll see what happens. All right. All right, guys. Good show today. Here's our Roll Philly. If Nick gets canned, I don't know if he gets another head coach job. I think he would, but I think you – I don't know. We'll see, dude. All right. Maxwell Hudson says, we have a defense enter. I agree. It's not the same circumstance. I do agree with that. All right. We don't have the same setup as Dallas. I'm just saying, you can look across the league and see a lot of good offenses. It doesn't solve everything. The Rams had a great offense this year. They made it further than we did. All right, there's a lot of good offenses that don't do shit. We would win a Super Bowl if we had Dak. Sig Lord, I tried to say that a couple weeks ago, and I got shredded, so I won't go down that road. But Sig saying yeah, I get it, Sig. I hear you. All right. Let me make sure I got all my super chats before I get out of here today. The reason I got to get out of here today is I got to get some of these posts up from the show. I got to post out the Ryan Mahaffey thing, for the breaking news, the new hiring. So I kind of got to go, not because I don't want to do more content, but because I got to repurpose the content, get it posted up for the people who aren't going to be here on live. I'm with you, Z. I just want to win. I hear you, Roll. I hear you, brother. I hear you, man. Original Philly says, damn, now I'm thinking about how Nick threw the whole stat. Oh, the whole thing. Whole thing. And you know what? Original. Now I might go too far for you here, but I'm going to go there anyway. This is an organizational thing, not a Nick thing, dude. Every time something happens, the owner's the scapegoat. Brian Johnson, 8th ranked offense. You're gone. First year play call, I don't care. Fuck you. You're out. Go back to the dregs of the league, Brian. Kevin Patullo, the offense is bad. It's a lot of different reasons. Not all Patullo. Gone. It's all Patullo. Everybody points fingers in the organization. And they scapegoat people. And that comes from the owner. The owner is the first person in the organization that scapegoats people. Before Nick. Now here we are 5 years later. Nick has scapegoated his entire staff to keep his job. And it started in 23 when he scapegoated Brian Johnson. You start walking that line. This is what I respect about Doug. I know a lot of people, whatever they think of Doug and how it ended with Doug. I respect Doug because Doug had integrity. All right. And maybe it wasn't, or maybe Doug is not as good as I thought, or whatever the case may be, or whatever your opinion is on it. That's fine. He had integrity. He said, you're going to have to fire me if you want me to fire my guys. I'm not firing my guys. Nick, first sign of chaos for Nick. Who do you want to fire? Let's fire Brian Johnson. Let's fire Kevin Petullo. Let's fire Jeff Stoutland. Let's fire Jason Michael. Let's fire integrity. And Mello, leave it to Mello to miss the point fucking entire. Mello, you're here. The point went like this. Right over your fucking head. Right over your head, Mello. Right over your head. Zay, this is the puppet master. Nothing happens unless he says so. Feels like you're right. Impulsive says it's Lurie, not Nick. Well, Lurie has definitely set up the Nick. Excuse me. He has definitely set up the scapegoat setup. There's no doubt. The scapegoat environment. Mel, I'm not talking anymore. It went right over your head. Went right over your head. You didn't even stop to use the brain if it's there between your ears to think. You didn't even stop to think. You just, I gotta be right. What do you mean? What was the fucking point? Doug didn't want to fire his guys, Mello. Doug didn't say, when one thing goes wrong, I'm going to fire everybody else so I can keep my job. Nick fired everybody. He scapegoated everybody. When Brian Johnson had the 8th ranked offense, bye, Brian, you're fired. Fuck you, Brian. Offense goes bad this year. One bad year, and it wasn't even bad of the running game. Jeff Stoutland, you're out the door. He scapegoats his guys. No loyalty. Mello, you're fucking delusional. Done with your comments. So, Z, if you had to pick, get rid of Nick or Jalen for another Super Bowl. So, I have no idea, dude. Doug should have fired his guys. What the F? You know, I call it integrity. You can call it whatever you want. I know, Slagger. He didn't fire him. They pseudo-fired him, Slagger. They took a guy who's got more experience than every one of them put together, and they said, you're not in charge of that anymore. So either accept your new role or and be castrated or leave. And he left. Whatever. You want to frame it up like John, that's fine. Gone. Oh my God, Mello, I actually think Mello's retarded. He might be the stupidest guy in here. Zander, Doug was a man with an agreed, Big Mike. There's something to be said about a man that stands behind his people. That's the point. I didn't realize it took a genius to understand this comment. I really didn't think that it took a genius to understand integrity and standing up for people and standing by people in people's corner. I mean, does anybody, and that's like imagine someone in your family, one thing goes wrong in your family, boom, they throw you to the wolves. That's Mello. Don't be in Mello's family, folks. He will throw you to the wolves. He don't give a shit. Throw you to the wolf. Hey, man, I don't care what we've done together. I don't care what you mean to me. You're going to the wolves. One thing goes wrong, it's on you. Get out of here. Throw them to the wolves. I avoid people like that like they're the bubonic plague. I want nobody like that around me. Nobody. I want nobody like that around me. Here's Penn. J-Mac's full of crap if he thinks the front office of Serriani had nothing to do with it. I agree, Penn. Slagger, these hoes ain't loyal. No, they are not. Impulsive, good point. Here's Bryce. Zeke clearly don't want to do what it takes to win, even if that means demoting his friend, the struggling offensive coordinator. All right, I'm Bryce. I know. Everything is perfect for the Eagles. They do it 100%, top to bottom, perfect. Roll says, Z, I think that's a little unfair. A job is a job and business is business. If your best friend's negatively affecting your business, you got to let them go. Yeah, and blame it all on them on the way out the door. Brian Johnson's still not an OC in the league. I'll harp on that story until I perish. You know, a league that, and again, the ironic part about it is in a league that has set up rules, the Rooney Rule, so that black coaches and minority coaches have a better opportunity to succeed. You take a guy who becomes a first-year play caller and has the 8th ranked offense. 8th. I don't know. That's really good. A first-year play caller. Nah, fuck you. Fuck you. You're out of here. Nah. Later, dude. You're out of here, Brian. Yeah, it did look 8th ranked to me, Reyes. It was one of the best years of Jalen Hurts' career. Couple bad interceptions, and you take it all out on Brian Johnson. I know. I know, Mello. You just love. I know. You got the Eagles' balls so far down your throat, you don't know what hit you. Rooney Rule is dumb. I never said it's not about the Rooney Rule. The point is that you had a guy who actually achieved success, and in order for him to maintain his job and his role, Nick Serriani didn't vouch for him. Nick Serriani didn't stick up for him. Nick Serriani didn't do anything for him. And now you're seeing the same thing. And now it's become bigger. And it starts at the top with Jeffrey Lurie and scapegoating. And now you have a head coach that scapegoats. And then you have a bunch of cucks who sit here and eat it up and don't think there's anything new integrity as a man, as a human being. Again, people that don't think that exists, I don't want them anywhere near it. I don't even care to have them watch my content. I don't care. I'll find new viewers. I don't care. I don't want anybody that doesn't have integrity. Here's Slager. This is a good point here. Z, to your point that you can't decide if it's Sirianni or the front office, they couldn't fire Sirianni without looking like assholes considering his recent success. So they gave him the rope to hang himself. Slager, that's a great way to look at it. I think you're right. I think you're right, dude. I didn't say they're 100% perfect. And I didn't say they have to be. I didn't say they have to be. Bunch of knee pads. That's hey, Flexin. Your nickname for Nick has truly become the only real, true, and honest nickname for Nick Sirianni, and it's Knee Pad Nick. Knee Pad Nick. Knee Pad Nick. I get on my knees. I'll do whatever you want. I will cop out for anybody. I don't care. You want me to fire him? I'll fire him. You want me to do this? I'll do this. Whatever it takes to keep my job. Some people will look at that and say, yeah, he's smart. I look at it as he didn't have any integrity, but that's what it is. All right, guys. Appreciate everybody being here. All right. If you don't have integrity, maybe don't come back to JAKIB Sports. I promise I'll be all right. All right. I don't need people with no integrity. All right. In my viewership. Don't care. Appreciate everybody, though, as always. Good super chats today. Good show today. I thought John Stoleness was freaking awesome, man. I got to post that interview up ASAP. I thought he was absolutely awesome. All right. So good stuff today. Hit that like button. See you next time, everybody.
EAGLES. Eagles.